Welcome to Wisdom Sleep Stories. I hope you enjoy your moment of relaxation.
Between the ages of 6 and 12, something quiet but significant shifts in the way a child thinks. The world of imagination and make-believe, while never fully abandoned, begins to share space with a new kind of reasoning. This period is often called the stage of concrete operational thinking, and it marks a time when children become more capable of logical thought about real, tangible situations. The difference is subtle at first, visible only in small moments. A child who once struggled to understand why a puzzle piece would not fit now approaches the problem more systematically, turning the piece, comparing edges, thinking through possibilities before acting. In this stage, children become less centered on one aspect of a problem and can hold multiple pieces of information in mind at once. They are no longer so easily distracted by a single striking feature. Where a younger child might insist that a tall, thin glass holds more water than a short, wide one, the school-age child begins to understand that quantity can remain the same even when appearances change. This realization does not arrive all at once. It builds slowly through countless small experiences with pouring, measuring, and comparing. This understanding is called conservation, and it is one of the hallmarks of middle childhood thinking. A child may first grasp that the number of coins in a row stays the same, whether the coins are spread apart or pushed together. The physical arrangement changes, but the count does not. Later, this same logic applies to mass and volume. A ball of clay can be rolled into a snake, but the amount of clay remains unchanged. The realization that rearranging objects does not alter their fundamental quantity reflects a growing stability in the child's thinking, a kind of mental steadiness that was not present before. Mastery of conservation extends across different domains as the years pass. Number conservation often comes first, followed by mass and then volume, which may not be fully understood until closer to age 11 or 12. Each step represents a deepening trust in logic over appearance, in reason over immediate perception. Classification abilities also strengthen during these years. Children learn to group objects by shared properties, whether by color, shape, size, or function. A box of buttons can be sorted by color, then resorted by size, then again by number of holes. This flexibility in categorization shows a growing mental agility. Children begin to understand class inclusion, recognizing that a subset belongs to a larger category. Dogs are part of the broader group of animals, and roses are a kind of flower. This capacity for nested categories allows for more sophisticated sorting and organizing of information, skills that will prove useful in science, language, and everyday reasoning. Seriation is another skill that emerges during middle childhood. This involves ordering items along a dimension, such as arranging sticks from shortest to longest or lining up blocks from lightest to darkest. Successful seriation shows that children can compare multiple relationships at once and keep track of sequence. A child must understand not only that stick A is shorter than stick B, but also that stick B is shorter than stick C, and so on down the line. It is a quiet achievement, rarely celebrated, yet it underlies much of what children will later do in mathematics and science. The ability to see patterns and progressions begins here, in these simple acts of ordering and comparing. Logical reasoning in these years becomes more systematic, especially when problems involve familiar, concrete information. Children can follow if-then relationships and detect simple inconsistencies, though truly abstract logic is still emerging. They begin to notice when something does not add up, when a story contains a contradiction or when a rule has been broken. A child might point out that a classmate cannot have been in two places at once, or that a game's outcome does not match the rules as stated. This growing sensitivity to logical coherence is a sign of maturing thought. Reversibility in thinking allows children to mentally reverse steps. They can imagine a spilled pile of marbles being put back into a jar, or a folded piece of paper being unfolded again. This mental flexibility supports both mathematical operations and everyday problem solving. Addition can be undone by subtraction. A sequence of moves in a game can be traced backward. Actions are no longer seen as one-way streets, but as sequences that can be undone or traced in reverse. This capacity for mental reversal is essential for understanding cause and effect, for planning ahead, and for correcting mistakes. Metacognition, or thinking about one's own thinking, becomes more noticeable between ages 7 and 12. Children begin to evaluate how well they understand something and choose strategies to improve their learning. They might realize that they need to reread a paragraph or that drawing a picture helps them remember a concept. They notice when their attention drifts and can sometimes pull it back. This growing awareness of their own mental processes is a powerful tool for learning, one that will only deepen as the years go on. Memory strategies become more deliberate during this period. Rehearsal is used to keep information active, such as repeating a phone number silently until it can be written down. Children discover that saying something over and over helps it stick. Organization strategies appear when children group related items, clustering vocabulary words by theme, or sorting facts by category. Elaboration involves creating meaningful links or simple stories to connect pieces of information in memory. A child might remember a list of planets by imagining a story that travels from one to the next. These strategies are used more consistently as children realize they can control aspects of their own learning, that memory is not simply something that happens to them, but something they can shape. Working memory capacity increases during middle childhood, allowing children to hold and manipulate more information at once. This growth supports complex tasks like mental math, following multi-step directions, and composing written sentences. A child can keep a question in mind while searching for the answer, or hold the beginning of a sentence while figuring out how it should end. Long-term memory becomes more organized, with knowledge stored in increasingly interconnected networks. Facts about history connect to facts about geography, and both connect to stories read in class. As these networks grow, children can retrieve relevant information more quickly to solve new problems. Attention span generally lengthens in these years, enabling longer periods of focused work. A child who once could barely sit still for 10 minutes may now read quietly for half an hour or more. More stable attention helps children manage classroom tasks that require sustained concentration, such as reading a chapter book or completing a set of math problems. Selective attention improves as children learn to filter out distractions and focus on important cues. They become better able to listen to a teacher's instructions even when the environment is busy or noisy. This growing ability to direct and sustain attention is one of the quiet foundations of academic success, a skill that will serve them well in countless settings beyond the classroom. Divided attention, however, remains challenging throughout these years. Trying to attend to multiple tasks at once usually reduces performance on both. A child who attempts to listen to a story while also building with blocks may find that neither activity receives full attention. Research in this age range suggests that switching rapidly between tasks takes more effort than focusing on one at a time. The brain is still developing the capacity to manage competing demands, And for now, sustained focus on a single activity yields better results. The improvements in attention, memory, and logical reasoning during middle childhood are not isolated developments. They interweave with one another, each supporting the others. Better attention allows for better encoding of information into memory. Stronger memory provides more material for logical reasoning to work with, and the growing capacity for logical thought helps children know where to direct their attention, which details matter, and which can be safely ignored. These cognitive changes unfold gradually over months and years, often without anyone noticing the small daily steps. A child who struggled with a concept in September may find it easy by December. The growth happens in the background, in the countless hours spent reading, playing, and talking. Parents and teachers may glimpse these changes in unexpected moments, when a child suddenly grasps a joke that requires understanding two meanings of a word, or when they catch an error in a story that would have slipped past them a year earlier. The concrete operational stage prepares children for the demands of formal schooling and social life. It gives them tools for understanding cause and effect, for organizing their belongings, for following the logic of a game or an argument. These are not dramatic abilities, but they are essential. They allow children to participate more fully in the world around them, to learn from instruction and from experience, to make sense of patterns that once seemed random. By the end of middle childhood, the thinking patterns established during these years will form a sturdy foundation for the more abstract reasoning of adolescence. But for now, the focus remains on the real and the tangible. The child's mind is learning to navigate a world of objects and events, of numbers and words, of rules and exceptions. It is a foundation built quietly, one small insight at a time. Selective attention improves as children move through the school years. They learn to filter out distractions and focus on important cues, to hear a teacher's voice above the hum of a busy classroom. This skill, which seems so natural to adults, requires practice. A younger child might be drawn to every movement in the room, every sound from the hallway. The school-age child learns to tune these out, to keep eyes and mind on the task at hand. This ability to attend selectively makes learning in group settings possible. Divided attention, however, remains challenging. Trying to attend to multiple tasks at once usually reduces performance on both. A child who listens to an audiobook while doing homework may find that neither activity receives full engagement. Research in this age range confirms that switching rapidly between tasks takes more effort than focusing on one at a time. The brain is still maturing, and the capacity to juggle competing demands will continue to develop well into adolescence. Reading development in middle childhood marks a profound shift, where younger children are learning to decode words, sounding out letters, and building basic vocabulary. School-age children begin to read for meaning and information. The act of reading becomes less about the mechanics and more about the message. Fluency improves as children recognize words more automatically, allowing them to coordinate decoding with comprehension. A fluent reader does not stumble over common words, but moves smoothly through sentences, freeing mental resources for understanding. Reading comprehension grows when children integrate vocabulary knowledge, background information, and text structure. They begin to see how paragraphs connect to one another, how chapters build toward a conclusion. They learn to infer unstated meanings, to read between the lines, to understand that a character's silence might speak louder than words. Identifying main ideas becomes easier, as does summarizing passages in their own words. These skills transform reading from a laborious task into a window onto new worlds. Writing development follows a similar trajectory, where early writing consists of simple sentences and disconnected thoughts. Middle childhood brings organization. Children learn to structure their writing with clear beginnings, middles, and ends. They understand that a story needs a problem and a resolution, that an essay needs an introduction and a conclusion. Spelling, punctuation, and handwriting gradually become more automatic, freeing attention for the harder work of generating ideas and choosing words. The mechanics of writing, so consuming for younger children, recede into the background. A child who once spent all their energy forming letters can now focus on what those letters say. This shift allows for richer expression, for longer and more complex pieces of writing. The leap from writing a single sentence to composing a full paragraph, and from a paragraph to a page, happens during these years. It is a quiet transformation, measured not in dramatic moments, but in the steady accumulation of practice. Mathematical thinking expands beyond basic counting to more complex operations. Addition and subtraction become automatic for most children, and multiplication and division enter the picture. Children start to see relationships among numbers and use them to solve multi-step word problems. They learn that mathematics is not just about finding the right answer, but about understanding why that answer is correct, about seeing the patterns and structures that underlie numerical operations. Number sense includes understanding magnitude, place value, and the relationships between whole numbers and fractions. A child with strong number sense can estimate, can tell at a glance whether an answer is reasonable, can work flexibly with numbers in everyday situations. They understand that 500 is closer to 1,000 than to 100, that half of a half is a quarter, that doubling and halving are related operations. This intuitive feel for numbers supports all later mathematical learning. Problem-solving approaches grow more systematic during middle childhood. Children learn to break tasks into steps and check their work. They experiment with different strategies, trying one approach and then another when the first does not succeed. Drawing diagrams, making tables, testing simple cases, working backward from the answer, all of these become tools in the problem solver's kit. The willingness to try different methods, to persist when a problem seems difficult, distinguishes successful problem solvers from those who give up too quickly. Scientific thinking begins with curiosity, observation, and simple classification of objects and events. Children notice patterns in the world around them and ask why things happen the way they do. They gradually connect observations to explanations, moving from describing what happened toward understanding why it happened. A child might notice that plants near the window grow taller and begin to wonder about the role of sunlight. This natural curiosity is the seed from which scientific understanding grows. Hypothesis testing appears when children make predictions and then look for evidence that supports or contradicts those predictions. Classroom science activities, such as simple experiments with plants, magnets, or water, give concrete structure to this early form of scientific reasoning. Children learn that predictions can be wrong, and that being wrong is not a failure, but an opportunity to learn. The experiment that does not work as expected often teaches more than the one that does. Cause and effect reasoning becomes more precise during these years. Children learn to distinguish coincidence from likely causal connections. They understand that just because two things happen together does not mean one caused the other. A child might realize that carrying an umbrella does not cause rain, even though the two often occur together. They also begin to understand that some outcomes have multiple causes, and that causes can be distant in time. The seed planted last month is responsible for the flower that blooms today. Planning skills improve as children learn to set sub-goals and think ahead about the steps needed to complete tasks. A school project that seemed overwhelming becomes manageable when broken into parts. Using simple checklists or mental plans, children become more capable of managing multi-part projects. They learn to ask themselves what needs to happen first, what comes next, and what might go wrong. Organization skills emerge alongside planning. Keeping track of materials, ordering tasks, and structuring time for different activities all require deliberate thought. A child learns to gather supplies before beginning a project, to put homework in a designated folder, to remember which day requires gym clothes. These skills develop unevenly but tend to improve across middle childhood, closely related to executive functions such as working memory and inhibitory control. Time management beginnings appear when children start to estimate how long tasks will take. A child who knows that math homework usually takes 30 minutes can budget time more effectively. Awareness of deadlines and schedules helps children coordinate schoolwork, play, and rest. They begin to understand that time is finite, that choosing one activity means postponing another. Homework and study habits begin to form as children encounter regular assignments. Some discover that they work best immediately after school, while others prefer a break first. Some need complete silence, while others concentrate better with soft background music. Over time, children experiment with where and when they work best, shaping early personal study patterns. Intrinsic motivation involves engaging in learning for interest or enjoyment rather than for external rewards alone. Many children show high intrinsic motivation for topics they find personally meaningful. A child fascinated by dinosaurs may read far beyond grade level. A child who loves building may spend hours on construction projects, driven by the sheer pleasure of creation. Extrinsic motivation includes working for grades, praise, or tangible rewards. In middle childhood, most learners show a blend of intrinsic and extrinsic motives that may shift with context. A child might genuinely enjoy reading, but also appreciate recognition for finishing a book. A mastery orientation describes a focus on improving skills rather than outperforming others. Children with this orientation view challenges as opportunities to grow. They tend to persist longer when tasks are difficult and seek feedback to improve. Praising effort and strategy rather than innate ability tends to support this approach. Growth mindset concepts emphasize the belief that abilities can change with effort and effective strategies. When children adopt this view, they are more likely to persist after setbacks. They see mistakes not as evidence of fixed limitations, but as information about what to try differently. Self-efficacy beliefs refer to children's judgments about their ability to succeed at specific tasks. Higher self-efficacy has been linked to greater persistence, better strategy use, and higher achievement. These beliefs are shaped by past successes, by observing others succeed, and by encouragement from teachers, parents, and peers. Learning from mistakes becomes more explicit as children realize that errors can reveal gaps in understanding. Reflecting on what went wrong offers information for adjusting strategies. Children who see mistakes as learning opportunities tend to develop more resilient attitudes toward challenges. Creativity in middle childhood often appears in storytelling, drawing, problem-solving, and imaginative games. Children combine growing knowledge with original ideas, leading to more complex and surprising creations. A story written by a 10-year-old may feature plot twists and character development that would have been impossible for the same child at age 5. A drawing may incorporate perspective and shading, techniques learned through observation and practice. The creative work of this period reflects both the expanding toolbox of skills and the unique perspective each child brings to their creations. This creativity is not limited to traditional arts. It appears in the inventive solutions children devise for everyday problems, in the elaborate rules they create for playground games, in the imaginary worlds they construct with friends or alone. The ability to think beyond what is immediately present, to imagine alternatives and possibilities, grows stronger during these years. Some children channel this creativity into specific domains, while others express it more broadly across many areas of their lives. Talent development can begin during middle childhood as children invest time and practice in areas such as music, sports, art, or science. A child who shows interest in playing the piano may begin formal lessons, practicing scales and simple pieces that gradually give way to more demanding repertoire. A child drawn to soccer may join a team, learning not just the skills of the game but the discipline of regular practice and the rhythms of competition. These developing talents often emerge from a mix of interest, opportunity, and supportive feedback from coaches, teachers, and family members. The path of talent development is rarely straight. Children may try many activities before finding one that captures their sustained attention. They may show early promise in one area and later shift to another. The talents that bloom in middle childhood are not necessarily the ones that will define a person's adult life, but they are often the first serious explorations of what it means to pursue excellence in a chosen domain. The hours spent practicing, the frustrations overcome, the small victories celebrated, all of these contribute to a developing sense of competence and identity. Special interests may become intense during these years, with children gathering detailed knowledge about topics like animals, space, historical periods, or fantasy worlds. A child fascinated by sharks may read every book on the subject available at the library, memorize species names and habitats, and talk at length about hunting behaviors and migratory patterns. Another child may become an expert on a particular video game series, knowing every character, storyline, and hidden feature. These islands of expertise, as researchers sometimes call them, can support advanced vocabulary and complex reasoning within the chosen topic. Such focused interests often serve multiple purposes. They provide a sense of mastery and control in a world where children still have limited autonomy. They offer material for conversation with like-minded peers, creating bonds over shared enthusiasms. And they can become springboards for deeper learning, as interest in dinosaurs leads to curiosity about paleontology, evolution, and Earth's geological history. Adults who nurture these interests, providing books, experiences, and patient conversation, help children transform fleeting fascinations into lasting foundations of knowledge. Draxberry. Collecting hobbies emerge as a natural expression of children's developing skills in categorizing and organizing information. Sets of trading cards, rocks, stamps, figurines, or coins become treasured possessions. Children often develop elaborate systems for sorting and ranking their collections, deciding which items are most valuable and arranging them according to personal criteria. The pleasure of collecting lies partly in the hunt for new items, partly in the satisfaction of bringing order to a diverse array of objects. Through these activities, children practice classification in everyday life, applying abstract principles to concrete objects. School adjustment in middle childhood depends on multiple factors, including classroom climate, peer relationships, and family support. A child who feels safe, respected, and valued in the classroom is more likely to engage with learning and participate actively. Classroom environments that balance warmth with structure tend to support both academic achievement and social-emotional well-being. When children feel that the rules are fair and consistently applied, They can focus on learning rather than navigating unpredictable expectations. Children who feel a sense of belonging at school tend to show higher engagement and fewer behavior problems. Belonging means more than simply being present in a classroom. It means feeling that one's contributions matter, that one is part of a community, that there is a place where one fits. This sense of belonging can come from many sources, from friendships, from teacher relationships, from participation in activities, from seeing oneself reflected in the curriculum. Schools that attend to belonging create environments where children can thrive. Teacher relationships play a central role in school adjustment. Warm, responsive interactions with teachers have been linked to better academic and emotional outcomes. A teacher who notices when a child is struggling, who offers encouragement and specific guidance, who celebrates effort as well as achievement, can make an enormous difference. Positive teacher-student connections can buffer the effects of stress and encourage children to take intellectual risks, to ask questions, and to persist when work is difficult. The memory of a caring teacher often lasts long after the specific lessons have faded. Perceptions of fairness, respect, and predictability in the classroom influence how safe and motivated children feel to learn. When children believe that the teacher will listen to their perspective and treat all students equitably, they are more willing to engage. Conversely, environments that feel arbitrary or unjust can undermine motivation and trust. The invisible climate of a classroom, shaped by countless small interactions, sends messages about who matters, whose voice counts, and what kind of place this is for learning. During ages 6 to 12, cognitive growth, emerging strategies, and supportive learning environments intertwine to build a deepening sense of competence. Children discover what they are good at, what interests them, and what they want to learn more about. They develop strategies for tackling difficult tasks and begin to see themselves as learners with particular strengths and challenges. This growing self-knowledge, combined with the skills and habits developed during these years, prepares them for the more demanding academic and social terrain of adolescence. The foundation laid in middle childhood supports not just school success but lifelong learning, a quiet achievement that unfolds one day at a time. The relationship between effort and outcome becomes clearer during these years. Children learn that practice leads to improvement, that attention to feedback leads to better results, that persistence in the face of difficulty often pays off. These lessons, absorbed through countless experiences with homework, hobbies, and play, shape attitudes toward challenge and growth. A child who learns to embrace difficulty rather than avoid it develops a resilience that will serve them well in countless future situations. The cognitive advances of middle childhood are not just about what children can do, but about how they understand themselves as thinkers and learners. They begin to notice their own patterns, the subjects that come easily and those that require more effort, the times of day when they concentrate best, and the conditions that help them focus. This metacognitive awareness, still developing and sometimes inconsistent, represents a new level of self-understanding. Children are not just learning content, but learning about learning itself. The interplay between cognitive development and emotional experience is subtle but important. A child who feels confident in their abilities is more likely to approach new challenges with curiosity rather than anxiety. A child who has experienced success, who has seen effort lead to improvement, carries those memories into future tasks. Conversely, a child who has repeatedly struggled without support may come to doubt their own capacities. The emotional tone of learning experiences shapes the cognitive development that occurs within them. As middle childhood progresses, children become increasingly capable of independent thought and self-directed learning. They can set goals, monitor their progress, and adjust their strategies. They can work on projects over extended periods, returning to tasks across days or weeks. They can seek out resources, ask questions, and pursue interests on their own initiative. These capacities for independence emerge gradually, nurtured by experiences that allow children to practice making decisions and managing their own learning within supportive frameworks. The cognitive landscape of middle childhood is rich and varied. From the logical operations that allow children to understand conservation and classification, to the memory strategies that help them retain information, to the metacognitive awareness that lets them reflect on their own thinking, development proceeds on many fronts simultaneously. Each advance supports and enables others, creating a dynamic system of growing capability. By the end of this period, children have built the cognitive tools they will need for the challenges of adolescence and beyond. Between ages 6 and 12, children's understanding of friendship undergoes a quiet transformation. Where younger children might call anyone they played with that day a friend, school-age children begin to think about friendship in more sophisticated terms. Friendship shifts from simple play-based companionship toward relationships built on shared values and mutual support. Children begin to describe friends using terms like trust, kindness, and reliability. A friend is no longer just someone nearby, but someone who can be counted on, someone who understands. Many children begin to identify a best friend during these years, often someone they see regularly and feel especially close to emotionally. This best friend may be a classmate, a neighbor, or a child from an organized activity. The relationship is distinguished from other friendships by its intensity and exclusivity. Best friend relationships in middle childhood tend to involve more self-disclosure, with children sharing secrets, worries, and hopes that they would not tell just anyone. There is an expectation of loyalty, a sense that this particular bond is special and deserving of protection. Friendship selection becomes influenced by similarities in interests, personality, academic orientation, and sometimes attitudes toward rules. Children tend to gravitate toward others who share their hobbies, their ways of spending free time, their level of comfort in the classroom. Research shows that children are more likely to become friends with peers who match their own levels of aggression or prosocial behavior. Birds of a feather, as the saying goes, flock together. This matching of behavior within friend groups can reinforce existing tendencies. For better or for worse, maintaining friendships begins to require active effort. Staying in touch when circumstances change, resolving misunderstandings before they fester, supporting each other during difficulties, all of these demand attention and skill. Unlike the friendships of early childhood, which often form and dissolve with little thought, the friendships of middle childhood have more staying power and more complexity. Longitudinal studies show that stable friendships during these years often involve consistent positive interactions and relatively low levels of conflict. When conflict does arise, children who can navigate it successfully tend to maintain their connections. Loyalty becomes a central theme in how children think about friendship. Friends are expected to stand up for each other, to take sides when sides must be taken, to keep confidences and defend against criticism from outsiders. A friend who fails to show loyalty may be seen as a traitor, a breach that can wound deeply. Trust is often tested when friends share personal information or face social dilemmas. A secret told in confidence and then spread through the class can shatter a friendship and teach a painful lesson about who can be trusted. Experiences of perceived betrayal, such as broken promises or shifting alliances, can feel particularly intense during middle childhood. A child who discovers that their best friend has been talking behind their back may experience hurt that rivals any adult heartbreak. Yet these experiences, painful as they are, can also teach important lessons about boundaries, expectations, and the complexities of human relationships. Research indicates that children who can discuss and repair betrayals with friends tend to maintain more resilient relationships over time. The capacity to forgive, to understand another's perspective, and to negotiate new terms of trust are skills that develop through these difficult experiences. Conflicts in friendships become more verbal and complex during middle childhood. Disagreements may center on issues of loyalty, fairness, or inclusion, not just disputes over toys or turns. A child might feel hurt that their friend spent recess with someone else, or angry that a friend did not defend them during an argument. These conflicts require more sophisticated resolution strategies than the simple sharing or turn-taking that worked in earlier years. Children who learn constructive conflict strategies, such as compromise, perspective-taking, and clear communication, often preserve friendships after disputes. They learn to express their feelings without attacking, to listen to the other person's point of view, to find solutions that leave both parties feeling heard. These skills do not come naturally to everyone and often require guidance from adults or the hard lessons of experience. But children who develop them find that their friendships can survive disagreements and even grow stronger for having weathered them. Making up after fights frequently includes apologies, explanations, and negotiated changes in behavior. A sincere apology acknowledges the hurt caused and expresses a commitment to do better. An explanation helps the other person understand what happened and why, reducing the sense of arbitrary betrayal. And a negotiated change, whether explicit or implicit, sets new expectations for the future. Many children report that successfully resolving a conflict can make a friendship feel stronger and more secure. Having faced difficulty together and found a way through, both children know something new about their relationship and about each other. Group dynamics gain importance during middle childhood as peer groups and informal social circles become central to daily life. Children often identify with small friendship groups that provide a sense of identity and belonging within the larger classroom or playground. These groups may have names, rituals, meeting places, or inside jokes that distinguish members from non-members. Belonging to a group offers protection, companionship, and a ready-made set of play partners. Cliques may form, characterized by relatively stable membership and clear boundaries between who is in and who is out. The formation of cliques reflects children's growing awareness of social hierarchy and their desire to establish a secure place within it. Being part of a clique can offer close support and a sense of specialness, but it may also heighten sensitivity to inclusion and exclusion. The child who is welcomed into the group experiences a glow of acceptance, while the child left outside may feel the sting of rejection all the more keenly for seeing others admitted. In-groups and out-groups become more clearly defined during these years. Children notice who is part of their circle and who is not, who shares their tables at lunch and who sits elsewhere. This awareness of social boundaries is a natural part of development, but it carries risks. The same mechanisms that create belonging for some can create isolation for others. Research suggests that in-group loyalty can coexist with fairness concerns, as many children also care about treating outsiders justly. The tension between loyalty to the group and fairness to all is a moral challenge that children begin to grapple with during middle childhood, a challenge they will continue to face throughout their lives. Social hierarchies in middle childhood often involve differences in visibility, influence, and centrality within peer networks. Some children become social hubs connected to many others and frequently sought out for play or conversation. Other children maintain a smaller number of close, lower-profile friendships. Both patterns can support healthy development, and neither is inherently superior. What matters most is the quality of the relationships, the sense of being valued and understood by at least some peers. Popularity can be defined in different ways. Sociometric popularity refers to being genuinely liked by many peers, often because of cooperative and kind behavior. Perceived popularity refers to being seen as cool or influential, which may involve a combination of prosocial behavior and assertiveness or dominance. Children who are sociometrically popular tend to be described as friendly and helpful, while those with high perceived popularity may command attention through a mix of charm and social power. Leadership in peer groups emerges when children organize activities, mediate disputes, or propose games that others are eager to join. Effective child leaders are frequently skilled at reading social cues and balancing their own wishes with group preferences. They understand how to include others, how to keep activities interesting, and how to handle disagreements without alienating anyone. These early experiences with leadership provide practice for more complex challenges later. Rejection and exclusion become more emotionally complex during middle childhood. Where a younger child might quickly move on from being left out, the school-aged child recognizes patterns. They notice if they are consistently the last chosen for teams, if invitations pass them by, if lunchtime finds them sitting alone. Chronic peer rejection during these years has been linked to higher risks for later social and emotional difficulties. Feelings of loneliness can occur even when children are surrounded by peers. A child may have acquaintances but still lack the close, confiding friend who truly understands them. Loneliness in middle childhood is often described as having no one who really gets you. This subjective experience is not simply about the number of friends, but about the quality of connection. The social world of middle childhood is rich and demanding. It requires children to navigate friendships, groups, hierarchies, and conflicts, all while their cognitive and emotional capacities are still developing. The lessons learned during these years shape expectations about relationships that can last a lifetime. Social skills such as turn-taking, sharing conversation time, and reading nonverbal cues become more refined throughout middle childhood. A child learns to wait for their turn to speak, to notice when another person is finished and ready to listen, to pick up on the subtle signals that indicate interest or boredom. These skills, which may seem small in isolation, are the building blocks of successful social interaction. Children who master them find it easier to make friends, to be accepted into groups, and to navigate the complex social landscape of school and community. Skills in initiating, joining, and gracefully exiting play or conversation are key predictors of peer acceptance. A child who can walk up to a group already engaged in a game and find a natural way to join in has a valuable social tool. Equally important is knowing when a conversation has run its course and how to bring it to a close without awkwardness. These transitions from outsider to participant and from participant to polite departure require sensitivity to social dynamics and the ability to adjust behavior in real time. Conversation skills expand during these years to include asking questions, maintaining topics, and adjusting language for different listeners. A child talking to a younger sibling uses simpler words and shorter sentences than when talking to a teacher. A child sharing news with a friend knows to pause and let the friend react, to ask follow-up questions, to show genuine interest. Children also begin to monitor whether others seem engaged or bored and adjust their storytelling or humor in response. A joke that falls flat teaches something about audience and timing. Cooperation and teamwork gain importance in group projects, games, and team sports. Working together toward a shared goal requires coordination, communication, and a willingness to subordinate individual preferences for the good of the group. Children learn to divide tasks according to strengths, to help each other when difficulties arise, and to share credit for collective achievements. Research shows that experiences requiring shared goals and coordinated roles can strengthen empathy and mutual responsibility among peers. The child who has worked alongside others to build something, to win a game, or to complete a project carries that experience of collaboration forward. Competition and rivalry also intensify during middle childhood, particularly in academic or athletic contexts. Children become acutely aware of rankings, of who is best and who is lagging behind. They compare their performance to peers, which can motivate effort but also trigger feelings of envy or inadequacy. A child who consistently loses may come to dread competitive situations, while one who usually wins may develop an inflated sense of their own abilities. The challenge for adults is to create environments where competition motivates without crushing, where winning and losing are both treated as opportunities for growth. Concepts of fairness and justice become more sophisticated during these years, where younger children often equate fairness with simple equality, giving everyone the same amount. School-age children begin to consider other factors. Effort matters, need matters, circumstances matter. A child who worked harder on a project might deserve more credit. A child who has less might deserve more help. These emerging ideas about distributive justice reflect growing cognitive complexity and social awareness. Children think about not just what is equal, but what is right. Moral reasoning in middle childhood shows increasing attention to intentions and circumstances when judging right and wrong. A child who accidentally breaks a rule is judged differently from one who broke it on purpose. A lie told to protect someone's feelings might be seen as less wrong than a lie told for selfish gain. These nuances in moral judgment reflect a growing appreciation for the complexity of ethical situations. Children are moving beyond simple rules toward a more context-sensitive understanding of morality. Rule following is typically seen as important during these years, yet many children also experiment with minor rule breaking to test boundaries and autonomy. Stretching bedtime, sneaking a treat, bending the rules of a game, these small transgressions are part of normal development. They allow children to explore the limits of adult authority and to experience the natural consequences of their choices. Group discussions about rules in games or classrooms reveal that children can articulate reasons for both strict and flexible rule application. They understand that rules exist for purposes and can be adjusted when purposes change. Peer pressure beginnings appear when children feel pushed to align with group norms in clothing, language, or activities. The desire to fit in can lead children to adopt styles, vocabulary, or behaviors that they might not choose on their own. Even at this age, some children report going along with group choices to avoid standing out despite personal preferences. The pressure is often subtle, more about wanting to belong than about overt coercion. But its effects can be significant, shaping everything from haircuts to homework habits. Conformity and individuality exist in tension during middle childhood. Children want to fit in, to be accepted by their peers, to avoid the pain of standing out in unwanted ways. Yet they also want to be themselves, to express their unique interests and perspectives. This tension is not easily resolved, and children navigate it in different ways. Some embrace conformity, finding comfort in being part of the group. Others assert their individuality, accepting the costs of being different. Most find some balance, conforming in some areas while maintaining distinctiveness in others. Gender segregation in friendships is common during middle childhood, with many children preferring same-gender peers for play and conversation. Boys tend to play with boys, and girls tend to play with girls. This pattern has been replicated across many cultures, though the degree of segregation varies with local norms and settings. Same-gender friendships may offer a sense of ease and shared understanding that comes from similar socialization experiences. Boys and girls often have different play styles, different topics of conversation, different ways of relating to one another. Cross-gender friendships do occur and may become more common when children share strong mutual interests or are in smaller peer groups. A boy and girl who both love chess may become friends through their shared passion. Such friendships can offer experiences with different communication styles and perspectives, enriching social understanding. Sibling relationships in middle childhood frequently involve a complex mix of cooperation, shared activities, and occasional rivalry. The sibling relationship is unique in its combination of intimacy and conflict, of lifelong bond and daily friction. Studies suggest that positive sibling bonds can buffer stress from peer difficulties, providing an alternative source of belonging and support. Birth order research has found modest average differences, such as firstborns sometimes reporting greater responsibility and younger siblings feeling more socially flexible. However, individual variation is large, and many researchers emphasize that family climate and parenting practices exert a stronger influence than birth order alone. Neighborhood and community contexts shape opportunities for informal play, shared traditions, and local friendships. Children who participate in community activities often describe a sense of being known beyond their immediate household. They see themselves as part of something larger, with ties that reach into the wider world. Team sports become a major arena for social belonging during these years. A team offers shared goals, clear roles, and group identity through uniforms or team names. Participation in team activities has been associated with higher reports of school connectedness and peer acceptance. The experience of winning together, of losing together, of practicing and improving together creates bonds that can last well beyond the season. Clubs and organized activities such as music groups, scouting, or hobby clubs allow children to bond around specific interests. These settings often mix age groups slightly, giving children chances to observe and emulate more experienced peers. An older member who demonstrates a skill becomes a model and sometimes a mentor. The beginnings of online friendships may emerge in late middle childhood, especially when children play multiplayer games or use supervised communication tools. Early online interactions typically supplement rather than replace in-person friendships at this age. Social comparison becomes more frequent as children move through middle childhood. They evaluate their abilities, appearance, and possessions relative to peers. Such comparisons can influence both motivation and mood, contributing to pride in strengths and concern about perceived weaknesses. Self-esteem in middle childhood is closely linked to perceived competence in valued domains and to the quality of peer relationships. A child who feels good at things they care about and who feels accepted by friends usually reports higher global self-worth. Children who feel frequently excluded or who struggle in valued areas may experience lower self-esteem. The patterns established during these years can influence self-image for a long time. The social experiences of middle childhood, from the smallest playground interaction to the deepest friendship, all contribute to a developing sense of self that will carry forward into adolescence and beyond. Research on bullying dynamics describes a pattern in which some children repeatedly direct negative behaviors towards specific peers, while others witness or occasionally join in. The roles within this pattern are not always fixed. A child who is a target in one context may be a bystander in another. A child who joins in with aggression one day may stand up for a victim the next. Roles such as target, aggressor, defender, and bystander can shift across contexts and over time rather than being permanently fixed. This fluidity suggests that bullying is not simply a matter of individual character, but is shaped by social dynamics and situational factors. Many school-aged children can clearly articulate when they think behavior crosses the line into bullying. They understand the difference between occasional teasing and sustained, intentional cruelty. This emerging moral awareness is significant. It means that children recognize bullying as wrong, even if they do not always act on that recognition. Studies show that class-wide norms, what most children approve or disapprove of, strongly influence how often bullying occurs. When the majority of students view bullying as unacceptable and are willing to intervene, rates of aggression tend to fall. Friendship quality can protect against the negative emotional impact of peer victimization. A child who is bullied but has at least one close, supportive friend tends to fare better than one who faces mistreatment alone. That friend provides a buffer, someone who offers comfort, validation, and a reminder that the victim is valued. Children who have at least one close, supportive friend often report feeling safer and more confident at school, even if broader peer relations are challenging. The protective power of friendship highlights how social connections can mitigate the harm of negative experiences. As cognitive skills grow, children become better able to understand others' perspectives and intentions within their social world. They can imagine how another person feels, can see situations from multiple angles, can appreciate that behavior has context and causes. This deeper social understanding allows for more nuanced judgments about fairness, loyalty, and apology. A child can recognize when someone is truly sorry versus when they are just going through the motions. They can distinguish between intentional harm and accidental injury, between malice and misunderstanding. Group belonging in middle childhood contributes to a developing sense of identity. Children answer questions like, "What kind of kid am I?" partly through the feedback they receive from peers. Am I the funny one, the smart one, the athletic one, the quiet one? These labels, assigned by others and eventually adopted by the self, shape how children see themselves. The groups they belong to, whether sports teams, friend circles, or clubs, become part of their identity, defining them by association as much as by individual characteristics. Over time, experiences in friendships, groups, and communities combine to shape enduring expectations about relationships. A child who has experienced loyalty and support expects to find it again. A child who has been repeatedly let down may approach new relationships with wariness. These expectations, formed during middle childhood, do not determine the future, but do influence it. Many longitudinal studies emphasize that positive peer experiences during these years are associated with later social competence and well-being. The lessons learned in middle childhood echo forward. Chapter: Independence across cultures. Between 6 and 12, the expanding social world of friendships, groups, and communities quietly weaves a lasting fabric of belonging and self-understanding. But the shape of that fabric varies enormously depending on where a child grows up, what their family expects, and what their culture values. The next part of this documentary explores how children's growing independence looks different across cultures and contexts, from the chores they perform to the freedom they are granted to move about their communities. In many cultures around the world, children between ages 6 and 12 begin to take on more regular household responsibilities. Tidying spaces, helping with food preparation, caring for younger siblings, these tasks become part of daily life. The expectation that children will contribute to the household is ancient and nearly universal, though the specific tasks vary widely. Cross-cultural research shows that this period often marks a shift from occasional helping to ongoing contributions that support daily family routines. In some eco-cultural settings, children's chores are closely tied to family livelihoods. A child might tend animals, fetch water, assist with small-scale farming, or help in a family business. These responsibilities are not symbolic but essential, contributing directly to the family's survival and well-being. In other contexts, chores are lighter and more symbolic, emphasizing learning responsibility more than economic necessity. A child might set the table or take out the trash, tasks that teach habits of contribution without demanding significant time or effort. Studies describe household work in middle childhood as a setting where children practice planning, coordination, and cooperation. Managing a chore requires thinking ahead, gathering materials, following steps in order, and sometimes coordinating with others. A child who helps prepare dinner learns not just cooking skills but organizational skills. As these abilities grow, children may be entrusted with tasks that require more independence, such as managing simple routines without direct supervision. The progression from small tasks to larger responsibilities mirrors the broader trajectory of growing autonomy. The idea of allowance appears in many industrialized societies, linking chores or age with small amounts of personal money. A child might receive a weekly allowance for completing assigned tasks, or simply for reaching a certain age. Discussions about how to use or save this money introduce early concepts of budgeting and value. Should the money be spent now on a small pleasure or saved for something larger later? These decisions, seemingly trivial, are practice for the financial choices that will become more consequential in adulthood. Children's understanding of money develops from seeing it as tangible objects to grasping abstract values, prices, and delayed rewards. A young child might not understand why a larger coin is worth less than a smaller one, or why a piece of paper can be traded for goods. Over time, these concepts become clearer, and children begin to understand the relationship between work, money, and the things money can buy. Cross-cultural differences in pocket money reflect broader beliefs about independence, work, and family obligation. In some cultures, children receive money freely as a gift. In others, money must be earned through labor or achievement. Norms of independence vary widely around the world. Some societies expect school-age children to manage many daily tasks alone. Other societies favor close adult supervision throughout middle childhood. These expectations are shaped by beliefs about safety, community cohesion, and appropriate childhood responsibilities. In some countries, it is common for primary school children to walk or cycle to school unaccompanied, especially in dense, walkable communities. International surveys report that children's independent mobility to school has declined in several nations over recent decades, often due to traffic and safety concerns. Cross-national comparisons suggest that children in Nordic and some Central European countries are often granted more freedom to travel locally than peers in many English-speaking countries. Independent travel to nearby shops, parks, or friends' homes is frequently seen as a step toward autonomy in middle childhood. A child who can walk to the corner store alone exercises a freedom that builds confidence and practical skills. The level of supervision in daily life ranges from almost constant adult monitoring to a more distributed, community-based watchfulness. In tightly knit communities, adults, other than parents, may routinely look out for children's safety in outdoor and neighborhood spaces. A neighbor might call out to a child running too close to the street. This collective supervision means that children are watched over even when their own parents are not present. Free play and unstructured time are a prominent part of childhood in many cultures, though the amount of unscheduled time has decreased in some urban settings. When children direct their own play, they choose activities, partners, and rules, practicing independence in a low-stakes environment. They learn to manage their own time and entertain themselves without adult direction. This kind of play offers opportunities for creativity and autonomy that structured activities cannot always provide. Organized activities such as sports teams, music lessons, or academic clubs are more prevalent in wealthier and urbanized communities. Parents across cultures often interpret participation in organized activities as a route to skill building. A child who takes piano lessons learns not just music but discipline. A child who joins a soccer team learns teamwork. The specific activities differ by region, influenced by local traditions and parental aspirations. Whether through free play or organized programs, children in middle childhood are learning to navigate the world with increasing independence, building the skills and confidence they will need as they grow toward adolescence and the greater autonomy it brings. School structures around the world vary in ways both visible and subtle. Class size differs enormously, from small groups in well-funded schools to classrooms packed with dozens of students. The teacher's role varies too, from authoritative lecturer to collaborative facilitator. Some systems emphasize group work and peer collaboration, while others rely heavily on individual effort and competition. In some schools, students stay with the same teacher and classmates for years. In others, they move between teachers and subjects throughout the day. The length of the school day differs globally. Some countries favor shorter days, with instruction concentrated into morning hours and afternoons left free for family, play, or independent study. Others extend the school day into late afternoon or include evening study periods, especially as children move through the grades. These variations often reflect national education priorities, transportation patterns, and family work schedules. A society where both parents work long hours may favor longer school days that provide supervision. A society with strong traditions of family time may prioritize earlier dismissals. Homework expectations also show wide cross-cultural differences. In some educational systems, homework is minimal in the early grades, with the belief that children should spend their out-of-school time playing, exploring, and being with family. In others, substantial daily workloads begin as soon as formal schooling starts. Comparative research has noted that high homework loads are not always directly related to better long-term academic performance. The relationship between homework and achievement is complex, influenced by the quality of assignments, the support available at home, and the child's own engagement. Academic pressure is experienced differently across societies. Some systems are highly exam-focused, with high-stakes tests determining a child's educational path from an early age. In these contexts, children may feel intense pressure to perform, with their future opportunities seeming to hang on test results. Other approaches prioritize balance between study and leisure, viewing childhood as a time for broad exploration rather than narrow specialization. Children's subjective experience of stress often depends on how performance expectations are communicated and supported. Pressure that feels overwhelming when imposed harshly may feel manageable when accompanied by encouragement and help. Family meal traditions provide recurring social anchors in many cultures. Some families emphasize daily shared dinners, gathering everyone around the table regardless of busy schedules. Other families gather primarily on weekends or holidays when work and school demands relent. During these meals, children often hear family stories, learn conversational norms, and observe adult relationships. They pick up cues about how to talk, how to listen, how to disagree respectfully. The dinner table can be a classroom of sorts, teaching social skills that no formal curriculum addresses. Extended family relationships remain central in many regions of the world. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins may play active roles in daily childcare, not as occasional visitors, but as regular presences in a child's life. In such contexts, children may move fluidly among multiple households, spending nights at a grandmother's house, eating lunch at an uncle's, learning skills from a cousin who is a few years older. This broad network provides a sense of belonging and obligation that extends well beyond the nuclear family. Sibling caregiving roles are common worldwide, particularly where families are large and adults have demanding work schedules. Middle childhood is frequently identified as the age range when older siblings begin to supervise younger ones for short periods and assist with their routines. An 8-year-old might walk a younger sibling to school, help with homework, or ensure that snacks are eaten and teeth are brushed. This responsibility, while sometimes burdensome, can also foster maturity and a sense of importance within the family. Community involvement for children can include local festivals, volunteer projects, religious gatherings, and informal neighborhood help. Through these activities, children observe civic roles and gradually see themselves as contributors to collective life. They learn that the world extends beyond their family and their school, that there are larger communities to which they belong and owe something. A child who helps clean up after a neighborhood event or participates in a religious ceremony is practicing citizenship in its earliest form. Religious and cultural education may occur in homes, schools, or dedicated institutions such as temples, churches, mosques, or community centers. In many traditions, middle childhood is a time of intensified instruction, when children are taught the stories, rituals, and shared symbols that shape their community's identity. They learn what their people believe, how they celebrate, what they mourn. This education connects them to history and to a sense of meaning that transcends individual experience. Rites of passage in middle childhood and early adolescence may include ceremonies, first communions, coming-of-age lessons, or other formal recognitions of growing responsibility. These rituals often link individual development with communal expectations and shared heritage. A ceremony marking a child's transition to a new status tells them that they are seen, that their growth matters, that the community has a place for them. Such rituals can provide powerful anchors of identity in a changing world. In more collectivist cultures, children are often encouraged to see themselves as closely interdependent with family and group. Duties, harmony, and loyalty are emphasized. Individual preferences may be subordinated to family needs or community expectations. Children learn that their actions reflect on their family, that success is shared, and that failures affect more than just themselves. This orientation shapes how children think about achievement, relationships, and their place in the world. In more individualist cultural contexts, children may be encouraged to express personal preferences and make independent choices. Self-expression and individual achievement are valued. Children learn to articulate their own opinions, to pursue their own goals, to see themselves as distinct individuals with unique paths. This orientation shapes expectations about what it means to grow up and become a successful adult. Urban childhoods typically involve greater access to formal schooling, organized activities, and media, but may offer less unsupervised outdoor space. A child in a city apartment may have libraries, museums, and sports leagues within reach, but few places to roam freely without adult supervision. The streets may feel too busy or too dangerous for unaccompanied play. Screen time may fill hours that children in other settings spend outdoors. The richness of urban resources comes with constraints that rural children may not experience. Rural childhoods often include more contact with nature, work related to agriculture or local trades, and mixed-age peer groups. A child growing up on a farm may have chores that contribute directly to the family's livelihood, may know children of all ages from a small school, and may have woods or fields to explore. The pace of life may be slower, the community smaller and more tightly knit. But opportunities that urban children take for granted, like specialized lessons or diverse peer groups, may be harder to access. Historical studies show that in many societies, children once entered labor roles or apprenticeships at ages that today are associated with primary school. Over the past century in many regions, formal schooling has replaced early, full-time work for children. Child labor laws, compulsory education, and changing economic structures have extended childhood. But patterns still vary globally. Work and childhood intersect differently worldwide. In some contexts, children's contributions are light household help alongside schooling. In others, children engage in structured apprenticeships. Where children's work is present, it often coexists with schooling, creating a dual context for learning skills and responsibility. Play variations around the world include games with stones, strings, balls, or improvised materials. A group of children in one country might play elaborate games with marbles, while children elsewhere invent games using bottle caps or sticks. Despite differences in form, many games share common themes of cooperation, competition, rhythm, and storytelling. The universality of play suggests something deep in human nature. Traditional toys and games often carry cultural meanings, teaching counting, coordination, or local myths. In some communities, handcrafted toys passed between generations link children to ancestral skills and aesthetics. Storytelling and oral traditions remain important in many cultures where elders share folk tales, legends, and family histories. These narratives convey moral lessons, humor, and cultural identity while strengthening listening and memory skills. Children's literature varies widely across regions, yet recurring motifs of adventure, friendship, and growth appear across many story traditions. Translated books and global media increasingly mix with local stories, giving children layered literary worlds. Media access, including television, radio, and digital content, differs according to infrastructure, regulation, and family resources. In some areas, children primarily share media in group settings, such as community halls or schoolrooms, rather than alone. Technology access, including computers, tablets, and mobile phones, shows significant global and within-country inequality. A child in a wealthy urban household may have multiple devices, high-speed internet, and unlimited access to digital worlds. A child in a rural village may share a single device with siblings or have no access at all. Where access is available, children may use technology for schoolwork, communication, or play, sometimes blending local traditions with global content. A child might video chat with relatives in another country, research a school project online, or play a game with someone they have never met in person. Opportunities for nature and outdoor play range from forests and fields to city parks, rooftops, and vacant lots. The specific landscape matters less than the opportunity to explore, to encounter the natural world in whatever form it takes. Cross-cultural accounts suggest that children adapt play to whatever environments are available, creating imaginative spaces in both natural and built settings. A child in a rural area might spend hours by a stream, while an urban child explores the same sense of adventure in an alley or on a fire escape. The human capacity for play transforms almost any space into a world of possibility. Food independence increases in middle childhood as children learn to prepare simple snacks, pack lunches, or help serve meals. A child might learn to make a sandwich, heat soup, or pour cereal and milk. These small acts of food preparation carry significance beyond their practical value. They signal growing competence and trust. Practices vary widely, with some families encouraging early cooking skills and others preferring to keep children out of the kitchen until they are older. But regardless of timing, many children gain satisfaction from being able to manage small parts of their daily nourishment on their own. Self-care skill development typically includes dressing, organizing school materials, basic hygiene, and sometimes managing a personal schedule. A child learns to choose appropriate clothing for the weather, to brush teeth without reminders, to pack a backpack with the right books and supplies. These skills are taught and expected at different ages depending on cultural norms and practical needs. In some families, children are expected to manage their own routines from an early age. In others, adults continue to provide more assistance through middle childhood. Responsibility-taking patterns broaden as children are entrusted with caring for pets, plants, or specific household tasks. A child might be given charge of feeding the family dog, watering the garden, or taking out the recycling. Successfully fulfilling these responsibilities often becomes a quiet marker of growing maturity within the family. The child who can be trusted to remember the dog's food each morning has demonstrated a reliability that earns further trust. These small responsibilities prepare children for larger ones to come. Decision-making opportunities may include choosing extracurricular activities, clothing, or how to spend free time or allowance. Should I take swimming or art class? Should I wear the blue shirt or the green one? Should I spend my allowance now or save it for something bigger? These choices, though they may seem minor to adults, are meaningful to children. They represent opportunities to express preferences, to experience consequences, and to learn that choices matter. In some families, children participate directly in decisions about moves, schooling paths, or religious involvement. In others, they are mainly informed of adult choices. Autonomy development in middle childhood is often described as guided independence. Children practice making choices within adult-set boundaries. They are given freedom, but not unlimited freedom. They are trusted, but still supervised. This blend allows room for personal preference while maintaining connections to family and community expectations. A child might choose which friend to invite for a play date, but not how late to stay up. They might select their own books at the library but still have limits on screen time. The boundaries shift gradually as competence grows. Cross-cultural studies emphasize that independence and interdependence are not opposites, but can be nurtured together in daily routines. A child can learn to think for themselves while also learning to consider the needs of the group. A child can develop personal preferences while also respecting family traditions. The either-or framing that sometimes appears in discussions of child development does not capture the complexity of real lives. Most children navigate between individual expression and social connection, finding their own balance as they grow. Children may feel most confident when they perceive themselves as both capable individuals and valued members of a group. The sense of being able to do things independently reinforces self-esteem. The sense of belonging to a family, a school, a community provides security and meaning. These two sources of confidence are not in competition, but complement each other. A child who knows they can tie their own shoes and also knows they are loved by their family has a sturdy foundation for facing the challenges of growing up. Around the world, ages 6 to 12 are often seen as a time to practice new roles safely before the more adult responsibilities of adolescence. This is a period of preparation, of rehearsal, of trying on identities and testing capacities. The stakes are relatively low, the support's relatively high. Mistakes can be made without catastrophic consequences. Skills can be developed without the pressure of adult accountability. These years frequently balance play, school, contribution, and exploration, creating a gradual pathway toward greater self-reliance. The specific tasks assigned, freedoms granted, and expectations held all reflect each culture's deeper ideas about what it means to grow up. In some places, a 12-year-old is still very much a child, sheltered and supervised. In others, the same age marks the threshold of significant responsibility. The variation is not random, but reflects beliefs about childhood, education, family, and community that have developed over generations. Yet beneath the variation, common themes emerge: the importance of learning, the value of contribution, the need for connection, and the gradual expansion of autonomy. Across diverse settings, the steady expansion of responsibility, mobility, and voice in middle childhood quietly shapes a child's emerging sense of independence and belonging. These years are neither the helplessness of infancy nor the self-determination of adulthood, but something in between. They are a bridge, a passage, a time of becoming. And though the specific experiences differ enormously from one child to another, the underlying developmental work is remarkably consistent. Learning to function in the world, building relationships with peers, contributing to family and community, and developing a sense of who one is and who one might become. The physical development of middle childhood, though less dramatic than the changes of infancy or adolescence, continues steadily. Children grow taller and stronger, their coordination improves, their stamina increases. A 12-year-old's body is capable of feats that would have been impossible at 6. Motor skills become more refined during these years. Fine motor control improves, allowing for more precise movements of the hands and fingers. Handwriting becomes more fluid and legible. Gross motor skills also improve, supporting participation in sports and physical games. The awkwardness of early childhood gives way to greater physical confidence. Health habits established during middle childhood can have lasting effects. Patterns of nutrition, exercise, sleep, and hygiene become more consistent. A child who learns to enjoy vegetables, to value physical activity, to prioritize adequate sleep, carries these habits forward. Sleep needs during middle childhood typically range from 9 to 12 hours per night. Adequate sleep supports learning, emotional regulation, and physical growth. Many children in industrialized societies do not get enough sleep, affected by homework, screen time, and early school start times. Physical activity plays multiple roles during these years. It supports physical health, provides opportunities for social interaction, releases energy, and can improve mood. Despite these benefits, many children do not get enough physical activity. The period from 6 to 12 is sometimes called the calm before the storm, a relatively stable time between the rapid changes of early childhood and the upheavals of adolescence. But this framing can be misleading. Middle childhood is not merely a waiting period. It is a time of substantial development across cognitive, social, emotional, and physical domains. The child who emerges from these years is fundamentally different from the one who entered them, equipped with skills, relationships, and self-understanding that will serve as the foundation for whatever comes next. The integration of all these developmental threads, cognitive, social, emotional, and physical, creates the unique person each child is becoming. No two children follow exactly the same path through middle childhood. Each brings their own temperament, their own interests, their own circumstances. The universal processes of development interact with individual differences to produce infinite variation. Yet common themes run through these years: the growth of competence, the deepening of relationships, the emergence of identity, and the gradual assumption of greater independence. These themes unite children across cultures and contexts, even as the specific expressions differ. In many regions of the world, extended family relationships remain central to the daily rhythms of childhood. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins often play active roles in caregiving, filling in when parents are working or simply weaving themselves into the ordinary fabric of a child's day. A grandmother might walk a child home from school each afternoon, her hand warm and familiar against the cool air. An uncle might help with homework on weekday evenings, explaining mathematics in ways that somehow make more sense than the teacher's explanations. A cousin might become the closest thing to a sibling for an only child, sharing secrets and inventing games during weekend visits. In such contexts, children move fluidly among multiple households, spending nights at a cousin's home or weekends with grandparents as naturally as breathing. They learn to sleep in different beds, to navigate different household rules, to feel at home in more than one kitchen. This fluid belonging brings both security and a rich tapestry of relationships, teaching children that family extends far beyond the walls of a single house. Sibling caregiving roles are common worldwide, particularly in families where there are many children and adults face demanding work schedules. Middle childhood is frequently identified as the age range when older siblings begin to supervise younger ones for short periods and assist with their daily routines. An 8-year-old might watch a toddler during an afternoon rest, keeping one eye on the sleeping child while doing homework nearby. A 10-year-old might help a younger sibling get dressed for school, patiently buttoning a coat or tying shoelaces that small fingers cannot yet manage. These responsibilities are rarely formal, but they matter deeply. Through them, children learn attentiveness, patience, and the quiet satisfaction of being trusted with something important. They discover that caring for others can feel both demanding and rewarding in equal measure. Community involvement deepens during these years as well. Children may participate in local festivals, carrying banners, or wearing costumes that connect them to traditions older than memory. They might lend a hand at volunteer projects, sorting canned goods, or planting trees in neighborhood parks. They join religious gatherings where familiar faces greet them by name, and they offer informal help to neighbors, perhaps feeding a cat while someone is away or helping carry heavy bags up a flight of stairs. Through these activities, they observe civic roles firsthand. They see adults organizing, cooperating, and contributing to collective life, and gradually, they begin to see themselves as contributors too. A child who helps set up chairs for a community celebration or distributes food at a local event is quietly learning what it means to belong to something larger than family alone, to be part of a web of mutual care that holds a neighborhood together. Religious and cultural education often takes place alongside formal schooling during these years. This learning may occur in homes where parents share prayers before meals or explain the meaning of holidays and sacred days. It may happen in school classrooms where religious instruction is part of the curriculum, or it may unfold in dedicated institutions such as temples, churches, mosques, synagogues, or community centers where children gather on weekends or evenings. In many traditions, these settings introduce moral stories that have been passed down for generations, along with rituals, prayers, and shared symbols that shape identity and belonging. A child lighting a candle during a service learns to hold the flame carefully. A child memorizing a sacred text discovers the rhythm of ancient words. A child participating in a seasonal ceremony finds their place in a community of meaning that stretches back through time. Rites of passage in middle childhood and early adolescence mark important transitions in many cultures around the world. These may include religious ceremonies that welcome children into fuller participation in faith communities. They might involve first communions, bar or bat mitzvahs, coming-of-age lessons, or other formal recognitions of growing responsibility. Such rituals often link individual development with communal expectations and shared heritage. The child is acknowledged not just as older, but as ready to take on new roles within the group. Family members gather, special clothing is worn, words are spoken that carry the weight of tradition. These ceremonies can be quiet or elaborate, but their purpose is similar across cultures: to name and honor the shift from younger childhood toward something more. Cultural expectations around selfhood vary widely across the world. In more collectivist cultures, children are often encouraged to see themselves as closely interdependent with family and group, with emphasis placed on duties, harmony, and mutual obligation. Success is understood as something achieved together, and individual accomplishments are valued partly for the honor they bring to the family. In more individualist cultural contexts, children may be encouraged to express personal preferences and make independent choices while still participating in family life. They learn to articulate what they want and to see themselves as shapers of their own paths. Neither approach is superior. Each reflects a coherent vision of what a good life looks like and how children fit within it. The physical settings of childhood also shape experience profoundly. Urban childhoods typically involve greater access to formal schooling, organized activities, and diverse media, but may offer less unsupervised outdoor space. Streets are busy with traffic, and open fields are rare. Children may find themselves playing in small apartments or crowded playgrounds, their worlds bounded by concrete and the hum of distant engines. Rural childhoods, by contrast, often include more contact with nature, work related to agriculture or local trades, and mixed-age peer groups. A child growing up on a farm might spend afternoons among animals and crops, learning rhythms of labor and seasonal change that city children rarely see. Both settings offer richness, both impose constraints. Neither is simply better or worse, only different. Historical studies remind us that childhood itself has changed dramatically over time. In many societies, children once entered labor roles or apprenticeships at ages that today are associated with primary school. A 7-year-old might have worked in a factory, breathing lint-filled air and tending machines. Or they might have learned a trade alongside a craftsman, beginning as an errand runner and gradually gaining skill. Over the past century in many regions, formal schooling has replaced early, full-time work for children, though patterns still vary globally. In some places, the shift is recent and still unfolding. In others, it happened generations ago. Where children's work is still present today, it often coexists with schooling, creating a dual context for learning skills and responsibility. A child might attend class in the morning and help in a family shop or field in the afternoon, their day divided between textbooks and tangible labor. This blend is neither wholly negative nor wholly positive. It depends on the demands made, the safety provided, and the opportunities preserved for rest and play. When the balance is right, such work can teach competence and contribution without stealing the other essential experiences of childhood. Play varies beautifully around the world, adapting to whatever materials and spaces are available. Games may involve stones, strings, balls, or improvised materials drawn from the local environment. A stick becomes a horse galloping across imaginary plains. A pile of pebbles becomes a game of skill requiring steady hands and keen concentration. A length of rope transforms into a jumping game with elaborate rules and chanted rhymes. Despite differences in form, many games share common themes of cooperation, competition, rhythm, and storytelling. Children everywhere seem drawn to testing themselves, working together, and imagining worlds beyond the immediate present. Traditional toys and games often carry cultural meanings that transcend simple amusement. A spinning top might teach counting as children wager how long it will spin. A string game passed through the fingers might demonstrate coordination while telling a story in patterns of thread. A carved figure might embody a character from local mythology, bringing ancient narratives into children's hands. In some communities, handcrafted toys are passed between generations, linking children to ancestral skills and aesthetics. The toy itself becomes a quiet teacher, connecting past and present through the simple act of play, carrying within its worn surface the fingerprints of those who played before. Storytelling and oral traditions remain important in many cultures around the world, where elders share folk tales, legends, and family histories with younger generations. Around fires on cool evenings, at bedsides before sleep, or during long journeys and quiet afternoons, narratives flow from one generation to the next, like water finding its natural course. These stories convey moral lessons without preaching, offering instead characters who make choices and face consequences that echo long after the tale ends. They offer humor that bubbles up unexpectedly, adventure that quickens the pulse, and a sense of place in a world full of wonders. The voice of the storyteller becomes a thread connecting children to all who came before, carrying forward wisdom that no book could fully capture. Children's literature varies widely across regions, yet certain recurring motifs appear again and again in stories told to young readers around the world. Adventures in distant lands, the testing of courage, the warmth of friendship, and the quiet triumph of growth emerge in tales from every continent and every era. A child in one country may read about a young hero crossing mountains, while a child in another follows a protagonist navigating the challenges of a new school or learning to stand up to injustice. The settings differ, the names change, but the underlying themes resonate across cultures, speaking to something universal in the experience of growing up. Translated books and global media increasingly mix with local stories, giving children layered literary worlds where familiar traditions sit alongside narratives from far away. A child might read a folk tale from their own culture in the morning and a translated novel from across the ocean by evening, weaving together influences that broaden imagination and understanding in ways that would have been impossible for previous generations. Media access varies considerably around the world, shaped by geography, economics, and policy. Television, radio, and digital content reach different households in different ways, shaped by infrastructure, regulation, and family resources. In some places, children have personal devices and access content in the privacy of their bedrooms, scrolling through options alone. In other areas, media is a shared experience. Children gather in community halls, schoolrooms, or neighbors' homes to watch programs together, turning what might be a solitary activity elsewhere into a social occasion filled with commentary and laughter. The content itself may be locally produced or imported, subtitled or dubbed, educational or purely entertaining. What remains constant is that media becomes part of the texture of childhood, shaping what children know, imagine, and talk about with their peers. Technology access, including computers, tablets, and mobile phones, shows significant inequality both between countries and within them. Some children grow up with devices at their fingertips, using them for schoolwork, communication, and play from an early age. Others may encounter technology only at school, in libraries, or through occasional access at a relative's home. Where technology is available, children often blend local traditions with global content, playing games developed on another continent while chatting with friends next door. They may research homework assignments online, watch videos that teach new skills, or communicate with family members who live far away. Technology becomes another thread in the fabric of daily life, woven in to varying degrees depending on circumstance and context. Opportunities for nature and outdoor play range enormously across different settings and circumstances. Some children roam through forests, fields, and riverbanks, their playgrounds stretching as far as they can walk or cycle. Others find their outdoor time in city parks, on rooftops, or in vacant lots between buildings where weeds push through cracked concrete. Cross-cultural accounts suggest that children adapt their play to whatever landscapes are available, creating imaginative spaces in both natural and built environments with remarkable creativity. A patch of dirt becomes a construction site. A narrow alley becomes a racetrack. A tree in a courtyard becomes a castle or a pirate ship. The human capacity for imagination transforms even limited spaces into arenas for adventure, discovery, and make-believe. Where nature is abundant, children develop intimate knowledge of plants, animals, and seasonal changes, learning the names of birds and the habits of insects. Where nature is scarce, they find ways to bring elements of the natural world into their play, perhaps caring for a potted plant on a windowsill or watching birds from a narrow balcony. Food independence increases in middle childhood as children learn to prepare simple snacks, pack their own lunches, or help serve meals to the family at the table. A child might learn to spread peanut butter on bread, pour cereal into a bowl, or assemble a sandwich from ingredients laid out on the counter. In some households, children take on more substantial cooking tasks, learning to boil water, fry an egg, or prepare simple dishes under supervision. Practices vary widely, but many children gain satisfaction from being able to manage small parts of their daily nourishment on their own. There is a quiet pride in making one's own breakfast, in knowing how to feed oneself when hungry, in contributing to the shared work of feeding a family. Self-care skill development typically includes dressing without assistance, organizing school materials, maintaining basic hygiene, and sometimes managing a personal schedule. A child learns to button shirts, tie shoelaces, comb hair, and brush teeth without reminders. They learn to pack a backpack with the right books and supplies, to remember where they left their homework, to keep track of when assignments are due and which activities happen on which days. These skills are taught and expected at different ages depending on cultural norms and practical needs. What feels like an early expectation in one family may be delayed in another, reflecting different beliefs about what children can handle and what supports they need along the way. Over time, these small competencies accumulate like stones building a wall, creating a foundation for more complex self-management in the years to come. Responsibility-taking patterns broaden as children are entrusted with caring for pets, plants, or specific household tasks that belong to them alone. A child might be given charge of feeding the family dog each morning, remembering to water the houseplants, or taking out the trash on certain days of the week. Successfully fulfilling these responsibilities often becomes a quiet marker of growing maturity within the family. When a child reliably completes a task without being reminded, adults notice. Trust deepens. More responsibilities may follow. The child begins to see themselves as someone who can be counted on, someone whose contributions matter to the smooth running of the household. This sense of being useful and dependable becomes part of how they understand themselves, a small but significant piece of their developing identity. Decision-making opportunities expand during these years as well. Children may be invited to choose their own extracurricular activities, selecting between soccer and swimming, art class and music lessons. They may pick out their own clothing in the morning, deciding what to wear within parameters set by weather and occasion. They may determine how to spend their free time after school or how to allocate a small allowance between saving and spending. In some families, children participate directly in larger decisions about moves, schooling paths, or religious involvement, their voices heard alongside those of adults. In other families, children are mainly informed of adult choices rather than consulted, learning about decisions after they have been made. Both approaches teach something about how the family operates and what role the child plays within it. Autonomy development in middle childhood is often described as guided independence, a phrase that captures the balance between freedom and oversight that characterizes these years. Children practice making choices within boundaries set by adults. They venture out, but not too far. They decide, but not about everything. This blend allows room for personal preference while maintaining connections to family and community expectations. A child choosing their own outfit expresses individual taste. A child following household rules at dinner time participates in shared norms. Both experiences matter, and most children navigate between them many times each day without conscious thought. Cross-cultural studies emphasize that independence and interdependence are not opposites, but can be nurtured together in daily routines and ordinary moments. A child who helps prepare dinner is both contributing to the family and developing personal skills. A child who walks to school alone is both exercising independence and trusting that the community is safe. Children may feel most confident when they perceive themselves as both capable individuals and valued members of a group, when they know they can manage on their own and also know they belong to something larger than themselves. Around the world, ages 6 to 12 are often seen as a time to practice new roles safely before the more demanding and adult responsibilities of adolescence arrive. These years frequently balance play, school, contribution, and exploration, creating a gradual pathway toward greater self-reliance. Children are still young enough to be protected and guided, yet old enough to begin shouldering real tasks and making real choices. The specific tasks assigned, freedoms granted, and expectations held all reflect each culture's deeper ideas about what it means to grow up, what children are capable of, and what kind of adults they are being prepared to become. Across diverse settings and traditions around the world, the steady expansion of responsibility, mobility, and voice in middle childhood quietly shapes a child's emerging sense of independence and belonging. They learn that they can do things on their own. They learn that they are part of something beyond themselves. And in the interplay between these two discoveries, they begin to form an answer to the question every growing person must eventually face: who am I becoming, and where do I fit in this world? Between the ages of 12 and 18, a quiet transformation begins to unfold within the human body. Puberty arrives not as a single event, but as a gradual reshaping of size, shape, and internal rhythms. These changes occur in a coordinated sequence, each shift preparing the way for the next, like movements in a slow symphony that the body has been waiting years to perform. The timing varies from one person to another, yet the pattern remains remarkably consistent across individuals and cultures. Some adolescents begin these changes earlier, others later, but nearly all will pass through the same stages in the same order. For most young people, this transformation stretches across several years, unfolding at its own unhurried pace rather than arriving all at once. During early to mid-adolescence, growth spurts often appear with surprising swiftness. Height increases more rapidly than it did in late childhood, sometimes adding several inches within a single year. The body seems to be reaching upward, stretching toward its adult form with a kind of urgent purpose. Parents may notice that clothes purchased just months ago no longer fit, that sleeves have become too short and shoes too tight. Limbs may lengthen faster than the torso for a time, creating a temporary sense of awkwardness that can feel uncomfortable. Arms and legs that once moved with easy coordination may suddenly feel slightly out of proportion, as though belonging to a different body entirely. This imbalance is entirely normal and will resolve as the rest of the body catches up to its newly elongated extremities. As bones grow and muscles adapt to new dimensions, physical coordination can feel less smooth than before. Even adolescents who were once graceful in their movements may find themselves bumping into door frames or misjudging distances when reaching for objects. The nervous system needs time to recalibrate, to learn the new geography of this changing body and adjust its calculations accordingly. This period of recalibration is temporary, a necessary phase of adjustment. Gradually, muscles and nerves find their rhythm again, and movement becomes not only coordinated once more, but more efficient and more powerful than it was in childhood. The body is practicing for adult strength and capability. Over time, the nervous system and muscles work together to support increasingly refined control. Athletes may notice improvements in speed, power, and precision as their bodies mature. Even those who are not particularly athletic will find that everyday movements become smoother and more confident. The temporary clumsiness of rapid growth gives way to a new kind of physical assurance. The voice, too, undergoes its own transformation during these years. Growth in the larynx and vocal cords alters pitch and resonance, deepening the sound that emerges when speaking or singing. For some, these changes happen so gradually as to be almost imperceptible. For others, the shifts may progress unevenly, leading to occasional breaks or cracks that can feel surprising or even embarrassing in social situations. A voice that was reliable yesterday may behave unpredictably today. Yet with time, the voice settles into its new register, becoming steadier and more resonant, carrying the tones that will define speech for the rest of adult life. Skin often becomes more sensitive during adolescence as hormonal shifts influence oil production and texture. Pores may become more visible, and the complexion may change in ways that require new attention. The face and upper body may need more care than they did before, and this heightened sensitivity can make adolescents more aware of their appearance. They become more attuned to small changes that might once have gone unnoticed, more conscious of how they look to themselves and to others. It is a natural part of becoming more aware of the body as it transforms into its adult form. Sleep patterns shift noticeably during the teen years, and this shift is one of the most significant yet least understood changes of adolescence. Many adolescents find themselves feeling naturally sleepy later at night than they did as children. They may lie awake in bed, unable to fall asleep at hours that once brought easy rest. This is not laziness or rebellion against bedtime routines. Researchers describe it as a delayed sleep phase, a genuine change in the timing of the body's internal clock that occurs as part of normal development. The biological systems that govern wakefulness and rest are recalibrating themselves for adult life. Adolescents generally need substantial sleep to support the many demands of growth, learning, and emotional balance. Their brains are working hard, consolidating memories and pruning neural connections even as they rest. Yet early school start times and evening activities often create a mismatch between biological needs and daily schedules. The world asks teenagers to be awake and alert at hours when their bodies are still signaling for rest. This tension between internal rhythms and external expectations is one of the quiet challenges of adolescence, a daily negotiation between what the body needs and what the world demands. Melatonin, the hormone that signals the body to prepare for sleep, tends to be released later in the evening during puberty than it was in childhood. This later onset helps explain why so many teenagers do not feel sleepy at the same time as younger children or adults sharing the same household. Their clocks are simply set to a different hour, tuned to a different rhythm that is entirely natural for their stage of development. Understanding this can bring patience to both adolescents and the adults who care for them. Energy levels can fluctuate from day to day as the body adjusts to growth, changing hormones, and shifting sleep patterns. Periods of alertness and fatigue may feel more pronounced during times of rapid physical or emotional change. Some days bring abundant energy, a sense of vitality and readiness for anything. Other days call for rest and patience, for moving more slowly through the world. Appetite often increases during growth spurts as the body needs more energy and building materials for new tissue. Adolescents may find themselves hungry more often, craving larger portions or more frequent meals. Food preferences and eating patterns may shift as young people explore autonomy and respond to changing internal signals. The body is working hard on construction and renovation, and it asks to be fed accordingly. Inside the brain, adolescence is a time of extensive remodeling rather than a simple continuation of childhood growth. The brain is not merely growing larger, it is becoming more refined, more specialized, more efficient. New connections are strengthened, while less used pathways are gradually reduced, clearing away what is no longer needed to make room for what matters most. The prefrontal cortex, which supports planning, decision-making, and impulse control, continues to mature well into the late teens and beyond. Because this region develops relatively late compared to other brain areas, adolescents may rely more on emotional or reward-focused systems in certain situations. This is not a flaw, but a feature of the developmental timetable, a temporary imbalance that allows young people to explore and take risks while still under the guidance of caring adults. Synaptic pruning during adolescence trims back connections that are seldom used, refining the brain's networks according to a principle sometimes described as use it or lose it. The activities and experiences that fill these years help shape which connections are preserved and strengthened, and which fade quietly away. The brain is specializing around the patterns of thought and behavior that matter most to each individual, becoming uniquely suited to the life that person is building. White matter, which contains myelinated nerve fibers, increases through the teen years, improving communication between brain regions. This myelination is like insulating electrical wires, allowing signals to travel faster and with less interference. Stronger connections between the prefrontal cortex and deeper emotional and sensory areas support more coordinated thinking and feeling over time. The brain is learning to integrate its many parts into a more unified whole, weaving together reason and emotion, perception and planning, preparing for the complex demands of adult life that lie ahead. The brain's reward system, including structures deep within its core, shows heightened sensitivity to exciting or novel experiences during adolescence. This sensitivity is part of what makes the teenage years feel so vivid, so full of moments that seem to matter intensely. Positive rewards, social feedback, and new experiences feel especially powerful and motivating during this time. A kind word from a friend, a success on a test, a moment of connection can all resonate with unusual force. Dopamine, a neurotransmitter involved in motivation and reward, plays an important role in these shifts in sensitivity. The dopamine system is particularly active during adolescence, contributing to the strong pull of exploration and goal-seeking. Young people are driven to seek out what is new, what is interesting, what promises satisfaction. This drive serves an important purpose, pushing adolescents out into the world to gather the experiences they will need for adult life. Changing dopamine patterns help explain why adolescence feels so intense, why passions run high and disappointments cut deep. The brain is calibrated for sensitivity, for responsiveness. This heightened state is temporary, a phase that will gradually moderate as the brain continues to mature. But while it lasts, it gives adolescence its distinctive emotional texture, its sense of urgency and possibility that will soften into the steadier rhythms of adulthood. Risk perception in adolescence is influenced by the balance between reward sensitivity and developing control systems. The brain's architecture at this age creates a particular relationship with risk that differs from both childhood and adulthood. Teenagers can often understand risks cognitively, can articulate the dangers of certain choices with perfect clarity, yet emotional and social rewards may weigh more heavily at certain moments. This is not ignorance, but a difference in weighting, in how the brain calculates the value of possible outcomes when excitement or peer approval are in the balance. Emotional intensity can feel higher during the teen years because the brain circuits that process feelings mature earlier than those that regulate them. There is a gap, a developmental mismatch between the capacity to feel strongly and the capacity to moderate those feelings. The result is that experiences of strong joy, frustration, worry, or excitement may feel overwhelming at times. Yet this too is temporary. Gradually, as regulation skills develop and brain connections strengthen, these intense emotions become easier to manage and integrate into daily life. The amygdala, a region deep within the brain that helps detect emotional significance, is highly active during adolescence. It responds quickly to faces, to social cues, to anything that might signal threat or reward. Its communication with the prefrontal cortex becomes more refined over time, supporting more nuanced emotional responses. But during the teenage years, this communication pathway is still being constructed, still being insulated and strengthened. The amygdala often speaks more loudly than the prefrontal cortex can hear. The stress response system, including hormonal pathways that prepare the body for challenge, becomes more reactive around puberty. Adolescents may find that stress feels sharper, more intense, more difficult to shake off than it did in childhood. This heightened reactivity is part of the brain's adaptation to a more complex social world. With experience, most adolescents build patterns of coping that interact with these biological sensitivities, learning to steady themselves through familiar strategies and trusted relationships. Hormonal changes during puberty influence mood, energy, and sensitivity to stress in ways that can be difficult to predict from day to day. These influences are part of a broader pattern in which body and brain signals are being recalibrated for adult functioning. The hormonal surges of adolescence are not simply disruptive, they are instructive, teaching the body and brain to work together in new configurations. Concentration and focus abilities continue to develop as prefrontal networks strengthen throughout the teenage years. The capacity to sustain attention on a single task, to resist distraction, to hold information in working memory while manipulating it becomes more reliable with age and practice. Many adolescents notice that staying focused is easier when tasks are personally meaningful or when the environment is well structured. Boredom and distraction are more likely when the connection between effort and purpose feels unclear. Multitasking, the habit of switching rapidly between tasks, often feels appealing to teenagers who have grown up in a world of constant digital stimulation. Yet research consistently shows that this kind of rapid switching typically reduces efficiency compared with doing one task at a time. Each switch requires the brain to reorient attention and reload working memory, which takes time and energy. The feeling of productivity that comes with multitasking is often an illusion. The actual output tends to suffer in quality. Abstract thinking becomes more reliable during the teen years, enabling reflection on ideas that cannot be touched or seen. Concepts such as justice, identity, possibility, and meaning can now be held in mind and examined from multiple angles. Adolescents can increasingly handle ideas that are not directly tied to concrete present situations. They can think about thinking, can reflect on their own mental processes, can consider hypothetical scenarios that may never come to pass. Hypothetical reasoning allows teenagers to imagine what-if scenarios and consider multiple potential outcomes before taking action. This capacity supports planning, enabling young people to think several steps ahead. It supports moral reflection, allowing them to consider how their choices might affect others. It supports creative problem solving across many areas of life, from academics to relationships to personal projects. Future orientation strengthens as adolescents begin to link present choices with long-term goals and possibilities. Where younger children tend to focus on immediate rewards and consequences, teenagers can increasingly hold the future in mind as they make decisions in the present. Thinking more frequently about careers, relationships, education, and personal values reflects this emerging time perspective. The future begins to feel real, something that can be shaped by the choices made today. Time perception itself shifts during adolescence. Some teens report that days feel simultaneously fast-paced and slow, depending on activity and emotion. An exciting hour may flash by while a boring one drags endlessly. Growing cognitive complexity allows adolescents to juggle past memories, present experiences, and future plans more actively than they could as children. They begin to construct narratives about their own lives, stories that connect who they were to who they hope to become. Body image awareness intensifies during this period as physical changes draw attention to shape, size, and appearance. Adolescents often spend more time thinking about how their bodies look, comparing themselves to peers, to images in media, to internalized ideals. This heightened awareness is a natural response to the rapid changes taking place, a way of making sense of a body that seems to transform week by week. Social comparison and media exposure can further heighten self-awareness about physical traits. Images of seemingly perfect bodies are everywhere, and the adolescent brain, still developing its capacity for critical evaluation, may take these images at face value. Physical self-consciousness is common during these years as adolescents become more attuned to how they might be seen by others, more aware that they exist in a social world of watching eyes. Yet this awareness gradually becomes integrated into a broader sense of identity and self-acceptance. Over time, most adolescents develop a more stable relationship with their bodies, one that can hold both appreciation and critique, both aspiration and acceptance. The intense focus on appearance softens as other aspects of identity become more salient, as achievements, relationships, and values take their place alongside physical appearance in the adolescent sense of self. A phase of apparent clumsiness can occur when rapid growth temporarily disrupts the finely tuned coordination established in childhood. Limbs that were once reliable may seem unpredictable. Reaching for a glass may result in knocking it over. This is the body learning its new dimensions, the nervous system updating its maps. As the system adjusts, balance and precision typically return and often improve beyond their previous levels. Strength and endurance generally increase during adolescence as muscles, lungs, and the cardiovascular system develop toward adult capacities. The body becomes capable of sustained exertion that would have been impossible just a few years earlier. These physical gains support greater capacity for activity, for work, for play. Nutritional needs shift along with growth as the body requires more energy, protein, and micronutrients. The appetite that accompanies growth spurts reflects genuine biological needs. Patterns of eating established during adolescence influence how well the body meets these demands. Hydration remains important as metabolic rates and activity levels change with growth. Even mild fluid shortages can affect concentration, mood, and comfort during busy days. Regular movement and exercise have been associated with beneficial changes in brain structure and function during adolescence. Physical activity supports the growth of neural connections and the release of mood-regulating chemicals. Studies consistently link physical activity with improved attention and cognitive performance in teenagers. The body and brain are deeply connected, and movement nourishes both. Circadian rhythms, the internal cycles that regulate sleep and wakefulness, shift toward later timing during the second decade of life. This is a biological reality seen across cultures and even in other mammalian species during their adolescent phase. The body is genuinely wired for later sleep during these years. The combination of delayed circadian timing and early morning obligations creates chronic sleepiness for many adolescents. Teenagers go to bed late when their bodies finally feel tired, then must rise early for school or other commitments. When schedules align more closely with biological rhythms, teens often feel more rested and alert, more capable of learning. Brain imaging studies show that while some regions mature early, others, particularly in the frontal lobes, continue refining well into the late teens. This uneven timetable helps explain why advanced reasoning can coexist with moments of impulsive or emotionally driven decisions. The same young person capable of sophisticated analysis may, in a moment of excitement, make a choice that bypasses careful reasoning. Overall, adolescence is a phase of tuning and fine-tuning rather than simple growth. Changes happen gradually, becoming noticeable only when looking back over several years. The interaction between brain development, hormonal shifts, and life experiences shapes each adolescent's unique pattern of strengths and sensitivities. No two young people follow exactly the same trajectory through these years. Some move quickly through certain changes while lingering in others. Some find particular challenges more difficult while breezing through stages that trouble their peers. This variability is not a flaw in the system, but a reflection of the countless factors that influence development. No single timeline fits every adolescent, yet the broad sequence from rapid change toward increasing stability is widely observed across cultures and contexts. The general direction of travel is consistent even when the pace and the particulars differ from one person to the next. By the end of the teen years, many neural pathways and bodily systems are more coordinated than they were at the beginning, supporting adult-level capacities in many domains. The work of adolescence, largely invisible, has prepared the ground for what comes next. The unfolding brain and body changes of these years quietly prepare young people for the next stages of learning, relating, and imagining the future. They emerge from adolescence with bodies that are stronger, brains that are more efficient, and minds that are more capable of abstract thought and long-term planning. The transformation is profound even when it passes unnoticed by those living through it. Between the ages of 12 and 18, many adolescents begin a more conscious exploration of the question that will occupy them, in some form, for the rest of their lives. The question is simple to ask and impossible to fully answer. Who am I? As they notice differences between their inner experiences and the outward roles they play, this question takes on new urgency and depth. Identity exploration often includes reflecting on personal strengths and weaknesses, on what comes easily and what requires effort. Adolescents begin to take stock of their interests, their talents, their fears, and the kind of person they wish to become. This reflection may happen quietly, in private moments, or it may emerge in conversation with friends, family, or mentors who help them see themselves more clearly. Identity formation is usually a gradual process that unfolds across years rather than arriving in a single moment of revelation. There are periods of questioning, times when everything feels uncertain and the self seems to shift with every new experience. There are also periods of consolidation when pieces of identity click into place and the sense of self feels more solid. This rhythm of uncertainty and clarity is normal and even necessary. Trying on different identities can involve experimenting with clothing styles, with hairstyles, with ways of speaking and moving through the world. Adolescents may cycle through different interests, different friend groups, different ways of presenting themselves. These experiments are not signs of confusion or instability, but rather attempts to discover which roles feel genuine and which feel like costumes that do not quite fit. Personal values begin to crystallize during adolescence as young people consider what matters most to them. Questions about friendships arise. What makes a good friend? What do I owe to the people I care about? Questions about work and effort emerge. What am I willing to work hard for? What feels worth my time and energy? Questions about daily choices present themselves. How do I want to spend my days? What kind of life do I want to build? Experiences of fairness, loyalty, and responsibility contribute to the shaping of these values over time. An adolescent who witnesses injustice may develop a strong commitment to fairness. One who experiences betrayal may come to value loyalty with particular intensity. One who is given responsibility and succeeds may develop confidence in their own reliability. Values are not simply taught. They are formed through the texture of lived experience. Belief systems may draw from many sources during these years. Family traditions provide one set of answers to life's questions. Cultural narratives offer another. New ideas encountered in school, in books, in media, and in conversations with peers add further possibilities to consider. Adolescents often find themselves comparing inherited beliefs with alternative viewpoints, weighing what they have been told against what they are discovering for themselves. Political awareness typically begins during adolescence as young people start to notice how rules, laws, and leaders influence daily life. They may wonder why certain policies exist, who benefits from them, and who is harmed. Discussions at home, in classrooms, and among peers can spark curiosity about social issues and civic participation. Some adolescents become passionate about particular causes. Others remain more detached observers of the political world around them. Moral identity development involves coming to see oneself as a person who does or does not live up to certain ethical standards. Adolescents begin to think of themselves not just as people who sometimes do good or bad things, but as people of a certain moral character. Acts of honesty, fairness, and compassion can become part of how they define who they are. This moral self-concept, once established, can guide behavior in situations where external rules are absent. Ethnic and cultural identity exploration may become more salient during the teenage years. Some adolescents feel a deepening connection to their cultural background, wanting to learn more about heritage, language, traditions, and history. Others navigate the complexity of multiple cultural influences, perhaps belonging partly to several traditions without feeling fully at home in any single one. This exploration is part of the larger project of understanding where one comes from and where one belongs. Gender identity exploration in adolescence can involve reflecting on how well societal gender expectations align with one's inner sense of self. For some, the categories offered by society fit comfortably. For others, they feel constraining or simply wrong. This process may unfold quietly, noticed only by the individual, or it may be more visible to family and peers. The pace and the outcome differ greatly from person to person. Sexual identity development includes becoming more aware of patterns of attraction, orientation, and romantic interest. For many adolescents, this awareness clarifies gradually as they gain more emotional and social experience. Crushes, attractions, and romantic feelings provide information about the self that was not available in childhood. Some adolescents know early on where their attractions lie. Others remain uncertain for longer. Both paths are normal variations in the human experience. Self-concept evolves during these years from relatively concrete descriptors to more abstract traits. Where a younger child might say they are good at math or fast at running, an adolescent can describe themselves as trustworthy, creative, anxious, or ambitious. Over time, they learn to integrate multiple roles into a more coherent picture of who they are, understanding that they can be a student, a friend, a sibling, and a team member all at once, with different facets of identity coming forward in different contexts. Self-esteem often fluctuates in adolescence as new challenges, social comparisons, and feedback shape self-evaluation. Successes in valued areas can raise feelings of competence and worth, while setbacks may temporarily lower confidence. This volatility reflects the ongoing process of figuring out who one is and how one measures up. Body image becomes closely tied to identity as physical changes and social comparisons highlight appearance. Adolescents often invest considerable thought in how their body fits with ideal images and perceived social norms. These concerns are often more intense than they will be later when identity rests on a broader foundation. Social identity reflects the groups with which adolescents identify. Teams, clubs, cultural communities, and online spaces all offer potential anchors for belonging. These affiliations help answer where one fits in the social landscape. To be part of a group is to claim a piece of identity. Peer influence patterns shift from simple imitation toward more complex negotiation. Adolescents may weigh peer opinions heavily in areas like music, style, and social behavior, especially when belonging to the group feels important to their sense of self. Friendships often deepen during these years, moving beyond shared activities toward genuine emotional intimacy. The emphasis on understanding, emotional support, and trust grows stronger. Friends become confidants for sharing worries, dreams, and secrets not told to parents. Sharing vulnerable feelings becomes more common as the capacity for intimacy expands. Romantic relationship beginnings often start with crushes that feel overwhelming. These early experiences serve as learning spaces for communication, understanding attraction, and navigating desire and disappointment. Family relationships typically change as adolescents seek more independence while still relying on emotional support. Dynamics may include increased conflict over rules, yet strong underlying attachment usually remains. Most adolescents still care about what their families think. Parent-teen communication often shifts from directive conversations toward more negotiation. Adolescents may share some experiences with peers while keeping other topics for family. Communication becomes more selective. Sibling relationships can oscillate between rivalry, distance, and newfound friendship. The shared history that siblings carry can make them important companions during periods of change. Autonomy seeking is a hallmark of adolescence, reflecting a growing desire to make independent choices and take responsibility for one's own life. This drive often appears in decisions about how to spend time, which friendships to pursue, what to wear, and what goals to set. Where children tend to accept adult guidance without much question, adolescents begin to insist on having a say in matters that affect them. This push for autonomy is not rebellion for its own sake, but a necessary step toward adulthood. Decision-making abilities develop as adolescents practice weighing options, predicting outcomes, and considering consequences. The more decisions they make, the better they become at making them. With experience, they grow more capable of integrating both emotion and logic into their choices. They learn to pause before acting impulsively, to consider how their choices might affect others, to think about the future as well as the present moment. Risk-taking and identity exploration are often intertwined during adolescence. Trying new activities or roles carries elements of uncertainty that can feel both exciting and frightening. Asking someone out, trying out for a team, speaking up in class, or sharing creative work all involve the risk of rejection or failure. Not all risks are harmful. Some involve positive challenges that expand skills, build confidence, and deepen self-knowledge. What is sometimes labeled rebellion can represent attempts to separate psychologically from childhood roles and establish an individual identity. Adolescents may question family values, challenge parental authority, or adopt styles and behaviors that differ markedly from what they were raised with. These behaviors often signal a search for individuality rather than simple rejection of family or community. They are testing boundaries, seeing which rules are firm and which have flexibility. Privacy needs increase as adolescents carve out mental and physical spaces of their own. They may spend more time in their rooms with doors closed, may become protective of their phones and journals, may resist sharing details about their social lives. This desire for privacy is not secretiveness, but a normal developmental need. Time alone, journaling, or activities pursued in solitude can support reflection and provide a sense of personal territory that feels essential during these years. Independence milestones may include managing personal schedules, handling transportation to and from activities, making certain purchases independently, or taking responsibility for academic work without constant supervision. Each milestone can feel like evidence of growing competence and can signal increased trust from adults. These small achievements accumulate over time, building a track record of reliability and capability. Responsibility taking expands from simple household tasks into more significant commitments at school, in part-time work, or in community activities. An adolescent who was once responsible only for keeping their room tidy may now be expected to hold down a job, complete complex school projects on their own, or care for younger siblings. Fulfilling these responsibilities over time contributes to an internal sense of reliability and maturity. Future orientation becomes more detailed as adolescents start to imagine possible paths in education, work, relationships, and lifestyle. Where younger children may have vague fantasies about what they want to be when they grow up, teenagers begin to consider these questions with more realism and specificity. Thoughts about the future often include both hopes and realistic assessments of opportunities and limitations. Career exploration may start with daydreaming about ideal jobs and progress toward gathering concrete information about what different occupations actually involve. Part-time work, internships, or volunteer roles can offer early glimpses of different occupational environments. These experiences help adolescents understand what kinds of work they might find satisfying and what kinds they would prefer to avoid. Educational aspirations are shaped by interests, perceived ability, family expectations, exposure to role models, and awareness of what is realistically accessible. Adolescents often revise these aspirations multiple times as they discover new subjects, encounter inspiring teachers, or learn more about the requirements of different paths. The dream of becoming a doctor may give way to an interest in engineering, which may later shift to a passion for writing. This flexibility is healthy. Life goals formation can include both concrete aims, such as earning degrees or entering specific careers, and more abstract wishes like helping others, traveling widely, or creating beauty. These goals provide a sense of direction that can guide shorter-term decisions and priorities. Having something to aim for makes daily effort feel more meaningful. Mentor relationships with teachers, coaches, relatives, or other adults can provide guidance, encouragement, and perspective that parents alone may not be able to offer. Many adolescents describe mentors as people who saw something in them and helped bring that potential to light. A single adult who believes in a young person can make an enormous difference in how they see themselves and what they believe is possible. Role models and influences can be found in family, in local communities, among historical figures, or in public personalities encountered through media. Adolescents often selectively adopt traits from these figures as they construct their own identities. They may emulate a relative's work ethic, a celebrity's style, or a historical figure's courage, integrating these elements into their evolving sense of self. Authenticity seeking involves noticing when behavior feels aligned or misaligned with inner beliefs and feelings. Adolescents become increasingly sensitive to the difference between doing something because they genuinely want to and doing it because someone else expects it. This search for authenticity can lead them to adjust friendships, activities, or goals to better match who they feel they truly are. Finding one's voice refers to developing a personal way of expressing thoughts, feelings, and opinions. This voice can emerge through conversation, through writing, through art or music, through activism, or through quiet, everyday choices that reflect personal values. Many adolescents experiment with different communication styles before settling into a tone that feels natural and respectful of themselves and others. Over time, consistent expression of their views helps solidify a sense of integrity and self-trust. Identity exploration often occurs in waves, with periods of intense questioning, followed by times of relative stability and consolidation. Each cycle can leave behind new insights that become part of a more enduring self-understanding. The questioning never fully stops, but it becomes less urgent as the core of identity grows more solid. Social identity and personal identity interact throughout these years, as feedback from peers and adults can confirm or challenge how adolescents see themselves. When external perceptions and internal feelings align, a sense of coherence and belonging is more likely to emerge. When they conflict, adolescents may feel pressure to change either how they present themselves or how they think about who they are. Across adolescence, relationships, experiences, and reflections interweave to form an evolving portrait of self. This portrait remains open to revision, yet gains increasing continuity as adolescents move toward adulthood. The person they are becoming starts to feel more stable, more recognizable, more like a foundation for adult life. By late adolescence, many individuals feel more able to describe their values, strengths, and preferred ways of relating to others. They have a clearer sense of what they believe in and what they are good at. The ongoing development of identity, independence, and relationships lays a quiet foundation for adult choices and connections. The work of adolescence, even when it feels chaotic, is building capacities that will serve for decades to come. Many studies link adolescence with heightened empathy, finding that teenagers who report stronger empathy also show more helping and cooperative behaviors. The developing brain seems primed for connection and care. Empathy in adolescence includes both feeling with others and understanding their perspectives. These capacities support more mature forms of prosocial behavior than were possible in childhood. Compassion and caring are frequently observed in teen peer groups where friends provide emotional support during times of stress. When one member of a friend group is struggling, others often rally with comfort and companionship. Adolescents who feel supported themselves are more likely to extend kindness outward, creating circles of mutual care that extend through communities. Prosocial behavior such as helping, sharing, and comforting tends to remain stable or increase for many teenagers across secondary school. These caring actions are linked with positive outcomes, including better peer relationships and higher emotional well-being. Volunteering patterns show that many adolescents engage in community service through schools, faith groups, or local organizations. Research has found that youth who volunteer regularly are more likely to show civic engagement well into adulthood. The habits of service formed during teenage years can last a lifetime. Social consciousness often rises in adolescence as young people notice inequalities more acutely. Youth activism has been documented in areas such as climate justice, racial equity, and educational policy, with teenagers organizing campaigns and making their voices heard. Idealism is a notable adolescent strength, as many teenagers express a sincere wish to make the world more fair, more peaceful, or more sustainable. This is not naive optimism, but a genuine engagement with the question of how things ought to be. The idealism of youth often combines emotional concern with emerging skills in organizing, communication, and creative problem solving. Where adults may have grown cynical or resigned, adolescents often retain the belief that change is possible and worth pursuing. Creativity research suggests that adolescence can be a period of rich idea generation, especially when teenagers have time, space, and encouragement for exploration. The brain changes that heighten reward sensitivity can make creative breakthroughs, especially satisfying and motivating. Creating something new, whether a piece of art, a piece of music, a story, or an innovative solution to a problem, can produce a rush of pleasure that reinforces the creative impulse. Artistic expression in teenagers spans many forms, from drawing and painting to design, drama, dance, and many hybrid forms that blend digital and traditional media. Youth arts programs around the world report that adolescents frequently use creative work to explore identity, process emotions, and engage with social issues. Art provides a safe space for experimentation, a place where ideas and feelings can be expressed without the constraints of everyday social expectations. Musical ability can develop rapidly during adolescence as fine motor skills, auditory discrimination, and emotional sensitivity converge. Many teenage musicians compose original pieces or experiment with new genres, reflecting both technical growth and personal expression. Music offers a language for emotions that may be difficult to put into words, and the intensity of adolescent feeling finds a natural outlet in song. Writing and self-expression often deepen during these years, with journals, poetry, blogs, and social media posts serving as outlets for reflection and communication. Studies of adolescent literacy note increased use of metaphor, narrative complexity, and personal voice compared with earlier childhood. Teenagers are finding their unique way of putting words together, developing a style that feels authentically their own. Innovative thinking in adolescence benefits from a willingness to challenge assumptions and consider unconventional possibilities. Young people who have not yet internalized all the limits that adults take for granted may ask questions that open new avenues of thought. This openness can contribute to fresh solutions in science projects, social initiatives, and creative collaborations. Innovation often comes from those who have not yet learned that something is supposed to be impossible. Learning capacity remains high throughout the teen years, with neural plasticity supporting continued growth in complex skills. The brain is still remarkably adaptable, still able to form new connections and reorganize existing ones in response to experience. Adolescents can acquire new knowledge quickly when it connects with personal interests or real-world applications. When learning feels meaningful, the capacity to absorb and retain information is impressive. Language learning abilities, while most flexible in earlier childhood, still remain strong in adolescence, especially for advanced vocabulary and academic language. Many teenagers successfully learn additional languages or refine bilingual skills for purposes of study, travel, or family communication. The capacity to master complex grammatical structures and sophisticated vocabulary continues to develop through the secondary school years. Adaptability and flexibility are often evident as teenagers navigate shifts between school, family, peer groups, and online spaces. Each context may require different behaviors, different ways of speaking, different aspects of identity to come forward. These transitions give practice in reading different situations and adjusting behavior accordingly. The adolescent learns to be a slightly different person in different settings while maintaining a coherent sense of self. Resilience research shows that many adolescents recover from setbacks such as academic challenges, friendship changes, family difficulties, or stressful life events. Protective factors like supportive relationships, meaningful activities, and a sense of purpose contribute to this capacity to bounce back. Resilience is not an inherent trait that some people have and others lack, but rather a quality that develops through the interaction of individual strengths and environmental supports. Coping strategies become more varied and sophisticated in adolescence. Younger children have limited tools for managing stress. Teenagers can draw on a wider repertoire. Problem-solving approaches address the source of stress directly. Cognitive strategies involve reframing thoughts and finding more helpful ways to interpret difficult situations. Social strategies involve seeking support from friends, family, or mentors. Over time, teens may compare the effectiveness of different approaches and refine those that help them feel steady and competent. Stress management learning often occurs through trial and reflection, through guidance in school wellness programs or community activities, and through observation of how trusted adults handle their own challenges. Positive psychology research highlights that many teenagers use hobbies, physical activity, and creative expression as tools to manage tension and maintain equilibrium. Finding healthy outlets for stress is one of the practical skills that adolescence offers opportunity to develop. Emotional intelligence can grow substantially during these years as youth practice naming feelings, reading others' cues, and navigating complex interpersonal dynamics. Higher emotional understanding is linked with better conflict resolution, more satisfying friendships, and greater success in collaborative endeavors. The teenager who can recognize what they are feeling, put it into words, and communicate it clearly to others has an advantage in almost every social situation. Positive risk-taking refers to constructive challenges that stretch abilities and expand experience without causing harm. Trying out for a team, performing on stage, joining a leadership role, or entering a competition all involve uncertainty about the outcome. Studies suggest that adolescents who engage in positive risks often build confidence, develop new skills, and strengthen social networks. Risk itself is not the enemy. What matters is the nature of the risk and the context in which it is taken. Healthy challenge seeking is part of the exploratory nature of adolescence, allowing teenagers to test limits and expand abilities in relatively safe contexts. Outdoor adventures, academic challenges, creative projects, and social initiatives can all provide opportunities for growth through manageable risk. The key is finding challenges that are demanding enough to be interesting but not so dangerous as to cause lasting harm. Adventure and exploration can involve physical environments, new ideas, or unfamiliar social groups. This exploratory drive helps adolescents gather the experiences that will inform later choices and identities. Passion and enthusiasm are common strengths, especially when activities align with personal interests. When teenagers find something they care about, they can throw themselves into it with remarkable intensity. They may spend long hours practicing a skill or organizing around a cause that matters to them. Energy and vitality often characterize the teen years. Many adolescents juggle school, hobbies, friendships, and activities with notable persistence. There is a vitality that comes with youth, even when sleep is insufficient. Humor development includes greater appreciation for irony, satire, and complex wordplay. Shared humor strengthens peer bonds and offers a way to cope with stressful situations. Laughter can diffuse tension and make difficulties feel manageable. Friendship loyalty tends to deepen during adolescence, with many teenagers placing high value on trust and reliability. Research connects strong, loyal friendships with better emotional adjustment and lower loneliness. Quality of friendship matters more than quantity. Romantic idealism often appears as adolescents imagine deep, supportive partnerships. Early romantic experiences serve as learning spaces for understanding needs in intimate relationships. Even relationships that do not last teach valuable lessons. Despite stereotypes of constant conflict, many adolescents feel emotionally connected to their families. Surveys show teenagers still turn to family members for advice on major decisions. The underlying bond often remains strong even when friction occurs. Technology skills are a prominent adolescent strength. Many teenagers navigate devices and platforms with ease. These skills support creativity and learning when paired with critical awareness of digital life's downsides. Information processing abilities allow adolescents to sift through large volumes of data. The challenge is developing judgment to distinguish reliable from unreliable information. Myth-busting research counters the idea that teenagers are uniformly selfish or reckless. Studies reveal many prosocial tendencies that stereotypes overlook. While some teenagers struggle, the majority are caring, responsible, and engaged. Stereotypes focusing only on risk miss substantial evidence of empathy and contribution. Historically, views of adolescence have shifted. In earlier eras, teenagers were treated as miniature adults. Modern science recognizes adolescence as a distinct developmental stage with unique brain changes and psychological tasks. It is now understood as a time of opportunity and positive growth. Cross-cultural views of teenagers reveal both universal patterns and significant local differences. Across societies, adolescence tends to be marked by exploration, heightened peer importance, and preparation for adult roles. These commonalities suggest that some features of the teenage experience are rooted in shared human biology and developmental needs. At the same time, the specific expectations, rituals, and opportunities available to adolescents vary widely, depending on cultural context. In many societies around the world, adolescents are recognized not just as future adults, but as key contributors to cultural continuity and social change in the present. They carry traditions forward, adapting them to new circumstances. They also push against established ways of doing things, sometimes provoking conflict, but also bringing fresh perspectives that can revitalize communities. The tension between continuity and change is often played out in the relationship between teenagers and the adults who came before them. Teenagers contribute to their families in numerous practical ways. They help with younger siblings, taking on caregiving responsibilities that free parents for other tasks. They assist with technology, often serving as the household experts on digital matters that mystify older generations. They participate in household tasks, contributing labor that keeps the family functioning. These contributions may go unrecognized or taken for granted, but they are real and valuable. The emotional support that adolescents offer to parents, grandparents, and other family members can also be significant, especially during times of stress or transition. A teenager who listens, who offers comfort, who shares their own perspective, can provide something that the adults in their life genuinely need. This reciprocity of care is an often overlooked aspect of family life during the teenage years. Contributions to communities extend beyond the family household. Many adolescents volunteer their time and energy to local organizations, schools, religious institutions, and civic groups. They coach younger children, clean up public spaces, raise money for causes, and advocate for change. Research on youth volunteering and activism documents teen-led efforts that have improved local environments, influenced school policies, and addressed social problems that adults had failed to solve. Emerging adult capabilities become visible as teenagers take on roles that once seemed beyond their reach. Some mentor younger children, offering guidance and support that draws on their own recent experiences. Others lead clubs, organize events, or represent their peers in student government. Part-time jobs provide early exposure to workplace expectations and the satisfaction of earning one's own money. These roles offer practice in responsibility, communication, and leadership that will prove useful throughout adult life. Adolescents often show sophisticated moral reasoning when discussing fairness, rights, and responsibilities. They can articulate nuanced views that balance personal freedom with concern for others, individual needs with collective welfare. These moral arguments are not always consistent, and teenagers may fail to live up to their stated principles, but the capacity for complex ethical thinking is clearly present. Many can engage thoughtfully with dilemmas that have no easy answers. Emotional intelligence growth supports more thoughtful responses to conflict, including the use of empathy and compromise. Teenagers who have developed these skills can navigate disagreements without resorting to aggression or withdrawal. They can acknowledge the perspectives of others while still advocating for their own needs. Research suggests that adolescents who develop strong emotional intelligence report more satisfying friendships and fewer persistent interpersonal tensions. Positive exploration and risk-taking are now understood as essential ingredients in learning to navigate the wider world. Adolescents who never take risks may miss opportunities to develop confidence, competence, and self-knowledge. Scholars emphasize that framing adolescence only as a problem period misses its role as a training ground for courage, initiative, and innovation. The willingness to try new things, even when outcomes are uncertain, is a strength that serves well in adult life. Across many studies, adolescents express a strong desire to be taken seriously and to have their perspectives heard. They want to be treated as people whose opinions matter, not simply as children who must obey or as future adults who have not yet earned a voice. Opportunities to express views in school, in community settings, or in family discussions can strengthen their sense of agency and responsibility. When young people are given genuine opportunities to participate in decisions that affect them, they often rise to the occasion with thoughtfulness and maturity. When they are dismissed or ignored, they may disengage or express frustration in less constructive ways. The difference lies not in the adolescents themselves, but in how they are treated by the structures and adults around them. Preparation for adulthood during these years is not limited to academic learning or career planning. It also includes the development of emotional skills, social responsibility, and ethical reflection. The teenager, who learns to manage their own emotions, to consider the impact of their actions on others, and to align their behavior with their values, is building capacities that will serve them throughout life. The combined strengths of empathy, creativity, learning capacity, and idealism make adolescence a powerful stage for shaping both personal futures and the wider world. Young people are not merely preparing for adulthood, they are already participants in the ongoing construction of society. Their ideas, their energy, their willingness to question what has always been done contribute to the vitality of communities and the possibility of positive change. The years between 12 and 18 are often remembered as a time of intensity, of feeling things deeply, of caring passionately about ideas and relationships and possibilities. This intensity can be exhausting, but it is also part of what makes adolescence a period of such rapid growth and discovery. The emotions that feel overwhelming in the moment often settle into rich memories that shape identity for decades to come. As adolescence draws toward its close, young people typically have a clearer sense of who they are, what they value, and how they want to relate to others. They have developed skills in thinking, communicating, and managing themselves that were not available to them just a few years earlier. They have built relationships, explored possibilities, and begun to construct the framework of adult identity. The transition to adulthood is not a sharp line, but a gradual process. The foundations laid during adolescence provide the raw material from which adult life will be built. The habits of thought, the patterns of relationship, the coping strategies, and the values crystallized during these years will continue to shape choices for decades to come. The story of human development does not end with adolescence. The young person who emerges from the teenage years is not a finished product, but a work in progress, still evolving, still learning. Yet something important has been accomplished. A foundation has been laid, a self has taken shape, a direction has begun to emerge. The physical body has reached or is approaching its adult form. The brain, while still refining connections, has developed the basic architecture that will support adult thought and feeling. The skills of planning, reasoning, and regulating emotion are largely in place, though they will continue strengthening throughout the lifespan. Relationships have become more complex and more voluntary. The adolescent has learned to choose friends, build intimacy, navigate conflict, and balance loyalty with independence. These relational skills will be called upon in partnerships, parenting, work, and community. The patterns established in adolescence often echo forward through the decades. Identity, though never final, has achieved coherence and stability. The young person has some sense of who they are, what they believe, and what kind of life they want to build. This identity will continue evolving, but there is now a core to build upon. The world awaits with its challenges and opportunities. The young adult brings whatever they have gathered during childhood and adolescence. They carry forward the gifts of their upbringing, ready to add their own chapter to the ongoing human story. For those who have explored human development from birth through adolescence, the picture is one of remarkable transformation. The helpless infant becomes a capable young adult. The brain develops into a sophisticated instrument of thought, feeling, and action. This transformation happens through countless small steps, day after day. The caregiver who responds to a cry, the toddler who takes a first step, the child who masters reading, each moment contributes to the larger pattern. What parents, teachers, and communities provide matters deeply. The quality of early attachments, the richness of language exposure, the opportunities for play, the experiences of the school years, the guidance offered during adolescence, all leave their mark. Yet children are not merely passive recipients. From the earliest months, infants are active participants, reaching out to explore and shaping the responses they receive. Development is always a collaboration between individual and environment. The science of human development reveals that human beings are remarkably adaptable. Resilience emerges from individual strengths and supportive environments. Weakest informals and influences can be found in many places during these formative years. Some adolescents look to family members whose lives demonstrate qualities they admire. A grandmother who built a small business from nothing, an uncle who volunteers at the local shelter every weekend, a parent who handles difficulties with patience and grace. These figures become quiet blueprints, showing what is possible when values are lived rather than merely spoken. Other role models emerge from local communities. Teachers who believe in a student's potential when that student has stopped believing in themselves. Coaches who emphasize character as much as winning. Neighbors who have overcome hardships and speak openly about their paths. These real, accessible people offer something that distant figures cannot. They can be approached, questioned, and observed up close. Historical figures also capture adolescent attention in meaningful ways. Reading about scientists who persisted through years of failure, artists who created despite poverty and rejection, or activists who stood firm against injustice can kindle a sense of what human beings are capable of achieving. These stories become part of an internal library that adolescents draw upon when facing their own challenges. Public personalities present a more complex picture. Musicians, athletes, actors, and online creators often command enormous attention from young people. While some of these figures model dedication, creativity, and positive values, others present images that are carefully curated and commercially driven. Adolescents learn to navigate this landscape, gradually developing the ability to appreciate certain qualities in public figures, while recognizing that they are seeing only a crafted portion of a complete human life. The process of engaging with role models is not passive imitation. Adolescents selectively adopt traits from the figures they admire, weaving these qualities into their own developing sense of self. A teenager might borrow the perseverance of a favorite athlete, the questioning nature of a beloved teacher, and the creative courage of a musician. These borrowed elements combine with the adolescent's own experiences and temperament to form something new, something that belongs uniquely to them. Authenticity seeking becomes increasingly important as adolescence unfolds. This involves noticing when behavior feels aligned with inner beliefs and feelings, and when it feels forced or false. A teenager might realize that they have been laughing at jokes they do not find funny, agreeing with opinions they do not actually hold, or pursuing activities that bring approval but no genuine satisfaction. These moments of recognition are valuable signals. They point toward adjustments that can bring outer life into better harmony with inner truth. The search for authenticity can lead adolescents to make changes that surprise the people around them. A student who has always been part of a particular social group might drift toward different friends whose interests better match their own. An athlete might step back from a sport they have played for years because they realize their heart was never truly in it. A teenager might change their appearance or style to reflect an inner sense of self that had been hidden. These adjustments are not always smooth. There can be confusion, resistance from others, and periods of not quite knowing how the new pieces fit together. But the underlying impulse is healthy. It reflects a growing capacity to recognize the difference between performing a role and actually living as oneself. Finding one's voice is closely related to authenticity, yet it emphasizes expression rather than alignment. It refers to developing a personal way of sharing thoughts, feelings, and opinions with the world. For some adolescents, this voice emerges through conversation. They discover that they can speak up in class discussions, share perspectives that differ from the majority, or offer comfort to friends through words that feel genuine and caring. For others, voice finds its way out through writing. Journals fill with reflections, poems capture emotional truths that resist ordinary language, and essays become spaces for exploring complex ideas. Some teenagers discover that they can express themselves most fully through art, a painting, a piece of music, a carefully choreographed dance. These forms can communicate what words cannot quite reach. Others find voice through activism, speaking out about issues that matter to them, and discovering that their words can influence how others think and act. Still others express themselves through quiet, everyday choices, the way they treat people, the causes they support, the boundaries they set. Voice is not always loud. Sometimes it is a steady, consistent presence that shapes the texture of daily life without ever demanding attention. Many adolescents experiment with different communication styles before settling into something that feels natural. A teenager might go through a phase of speaking very formally, then swing to casual slang, then find a middle ground that allows them to adjust their tone depending on context while still feeling like themselves. They might try on different writing styles, different ways of participating in discussions, different approaches to sharing or withholding personal information. This experimentation is part of the learning process. Over time, consistent expression of one's views helps solidify a sense of integrity and self-trust. When adolescents notice that they have been true to their values in conversation after conversation, situation after situation, something important happens inside. They begin to trust themselves more deeply. They develop confidence that they know who they are and what they believe, and that they can express these truths even when doing so is uncomfortable or unpopular. Identity exploration often occurs in waves rather than as a straight line of development. There are periods of intense questioning when everything seems open to examination. Who am I really? What do I actually believe? Where do I truly belong? These questions can feel urgent, even consuming. Then there are times of relative stability when answers feel clearer and the work of exploration gives way to the work of living according to what has been discovered. The rhythm between questioning and stability is natural and healthy. Each wave of questioning tends to be sparked by something: a significant life event, a new relationship, exposure to different ideas or communities, or simply the accumulated weight of experiences that no longer fit old understandings. The questioning that follows is not a sign that previous conclusions were wrong. It is a sign that the adolescent has grown beyond them and is ready for a more complete understanding. Each cycle leaves behind new insights that become part of a more enduring self-understanding. A teenager who questions their career interests might emerge with a clearer sense of what truly excites them. One who wrestles with beliefs inherited from family might arrive at convictions that are both similar to and different from what they were taught. Another who struggles with where they fit socially might discover a community that welcomes the very qualities that made them feel like outsiders elsewhere. These insights accumulate over time. They form layers of self-knowledge that become increasingly stable, even as the surface continues to shift in response to new experiences. Social identity and personal identity interact in complex ways throughout adolescence. Feedback from peers and adults can confirm or challenge how teenagers see themselves. A student who thinks of themselves as shy might discover that others perceive them as thoughtful and calm. One who fears they are not smart enough might receive encouragement that reshapes their academic self-concept. Another who feels invisible might find a group that values exactly what they have to offer. When external perceptions and internal feelings align, a sense of coherence and belonging is more likely to emerge. There is a settling quality to being seen as one sees oneself. It reduces the exhausting work of trying to bridge a gap between inner experience and outer appearance. It creates space for simply being, rather than constantly performing or defending. When there is a mismatch between how adolescents see themselves and how they are seen by others, the situation is more complicated. Sometimes this signals an opportunity for growth, as external feedback highlights blind spots or underdeveloped aspects of self. Other times, it reflects the limitations of a particular environment. A teenager whose strengths are not valued in their current setting might flourish when they find a different context. The interaction between social and personal identity continues throughout life, but the patterns established in adolescence often set the foundation for how adults navigate this dynamic. Across the years from 12 to 18, relationships, experiences, and reflections interweave to form an evolving portrait of self. This portrait is never finished in the way a painting might be completed and hung on a wall. It remains responsive to new experiences, new relationships, and new understandings. Yet it gains increasing continuity as adolescence progresses. The teenager who feels like a completely different person from year to year gradually becomes the young adult who recognizes a consistent thread running through all the changes. By late adolescence, many individuals report feeling more able to describe their values, their strengths, and their preferred ways of relating to others. They can articulate what matters to them and why. Social consciousness often rises during adolescence in ways that can surprise both the young people experiencing it and the adults around them. Where children might accept the world largely as they find it, adolescents begin to notice disparities and injustices with fresh eyes. They see that some families struggle while others have more than they need. They observe that certain groups face barriers that others never encounter. They become aware of environmental damage, political conflicts, and social problems that had previously existed only at the edges of their awareness. This heightened perception is not simply a matter of being exposed to more information, though that certainly plays a role. It reflects genuine cognitive development. The capacity for abstract thinking allows adolescents to consider systems and structures, not just individual cases. They can ask why things are the way they are and imagine how they might be different. Youth activism has emerged as a significant force across many societies. Teenagers have organized campaigns around climate justice, calling for policies that protect the planet they will inherit. They have advocated for racial equity, demanding that institutions address long-standing patterns of discrimination. They have pushed for changes in educational policy, gun safety laws, and mental health resources. While not every adolescent becomes an activist, the collective energy of young people has influenced public discourse and policy decisions in measurable ways. The roots of this activism often lie in personal experience combined with expanding awareness. A teenager who has witnessed the effects of pollution in their community might become passionate about environmental protection. One who has experienced discrimination might work to create more inclusive spaces. Another who has lost a friend to preventable causes might channel grief into advocacy. Idealism is a notable strength during these years, sometimes dismissed by adults as naive but genuinely valuable in its own right. Many adolescents express a deep wish to make the world more fair, more peaceful, more sustainable. This wish is not just sentiment. It often combines with emerging skills in organizing, communication, and creative problem solving. When idealism meets capability, things can actually change. History offers many examples of young people whose idealistic visions eventually reshaped societies. The idealism of adolescence serves another important function beyond its immediate effects. It establishes aspirations that can guide choices for years to come. A teenager who believes in justice may become an adult who works in law, social services, or community organizing. One who dreams of a healthier planet may pursue environmental science or sustainable business practices. The seeds planted in adolescence often bear fruit across a lifetime. Creativity research suggests that these years can be particularly fertile for generating new ideas. The combination of heightened reward sensitivity, openness to experience, and freedom from some of the constraints that settle in during adulthood creates conditions favorable to creative work. When teenagers have time and space for exploration, without excessive pressure to produce practical outcomes, they often generate ideas that are genuinely novel and sometimes valuable. Brain changes during adolescence contribute to this creative potential. The heightened activity in reward circuits makes the satisfaction of creative breakthroughs especially intense and motivating. A teenager who writes a song, designs a game, or solves a problem in an unexpected way experiences that success in a particularly vivid way. This intensity can fuel continued creative effort and the development of skills over time. Artistic expression flourishes among many adolescents across a remarkable range of forms. Drawing and painting allow some to communicate visual ideas that words cannot capture. Design work, whether for clothing, spaces, or digital interfaces, channels aesthetic sensibility into practical applications. Drama and theater offer opportunities to explore different perspectives by inhabiting characters whose lives differ from one's own. Music holds a special place in many adolescent lives. The teenage years often see rapid development of musical ability as fine motor skills, auditory discrimination, and emotional sensitivity converge. Many young musicians move beyond simply playing the notes others have written. They begin composing original pieces, experimenting with new genres, blending influences in fresh combinations. This creative music making reflects both technical growth and personal expression. Youth arts programs around the world document how adolescents use creative work to explore identity, process emotions, and engage with social issues. A mural project might become a way for teenagers to represent their community's history and aspirations. A theater production might address topics like bullying, family conflict, or social justice. A music program might bring together young people from different backgrounds to create something together. These creative endeavors do more than produce artifacts. They build skills, foster connections, and offer healthy channels for the intense emotions of adolescence. Writing and self-expression often deepen during these years. Journals become repositories for private reflection, places where teenagers can work through confusion, record experiences, and track their own changing thoughts over time. Poetry offers a concentrated form for capturing emotional truths that resist straightforward prose. Some adolescents discover that they have a voice for storytelling, crafting narratives that draw from life while transforming experience into something new. Online platforms have expanded the possibilities for adolescent writing. Blogs, social media, and collaborative writing sites allow young people to share their work with audiences that would have been unimaginable in earlier generations. While this brings risks related to privacy and feedback, it also provides validation and community for young writers who might otherwise feel isolated. Innovative thinking benefits from the willingness of many adolescents to challenge assumptions and consider unconventional possibilities. Where adults may have settled into patterns of thought shaped by experience and pragmatism, teenagers often retain the capacity to ask fresh questions. Why do we do it this way? What if we tried something different? This questioning spirit can contribute to fresh solutions across many domains. Science projects, social initiatives, creative collaborations, and everyday problem solving all benefit from minds that have not yet learned to accept limitations as inevitable. Learning capacity remains high throughout the teen years. Neuroplasticity continues to support growth in complex skills, and adolescents can acquire new knowledge quickly when it connects with their interests or has clear real-world applications. The key often lies in relevance. Material that seems abstract and disconnected from anything that matters may be hard to absorb. The same content, presented in a way that connects to personal interests or future goals, can be learned with remarkable speed and retention. Language learning provides a good example. While the most dramatic ease in acquiring languages is found in early childhood, adolescence still offers significant advantages over adulthood. Many teenagers successfully learn additional languages for study, travel, or communication with extended family. Advanced vocabulary and academic language continue to develop rapidly during these years, even in one's first language. The ability to handle increasingly sophisticated texts, to understand nuance and implication, to use language precisely for different purposes. All of these grow substantially across adolescence. Adaptability and flexibility show themselves as teenagers navigate the constantly shifting contexts of their lives. School settings differ from home. Different peer groups have different norms. Online spaces operate by rules distinct from face-to-face interaction. The transitions between these contexts happen dozens of times each day, often without conscious thought. This constant practice in reading different situations and adjusting behavior accordingly build skills that will serve adolescents well throughout their lives. They learn to sense what a context requires, to modulate their presentation of self, to communicate effectively with different audiences. These abilities are not about being fake or manipulative. They represent genuine social intelligence, the capacity to navigate a complex world with sensitivity and skill. Resilience research has revealed that many adolescents recover well from setbacks that might seem devastating in the moment. Academic challenges, friendship changes, family difficulties, and other stressful events can certainly cause pain and disruption. Yet most teenagers find their way through, often emerging with new understanding and strength. Supportive relationships with family, friends, or other caring adults provide a foundation of security. Meaningful activities offer engagement and purpose. Internal resources like problem-solving ability and optimism contribute to the capacity to persist through difficulties. When these protective factors are present, adolescents show remarkable ability to bounce back. Coping strategies become more varied during the teenage years. Younger children may have limited options for dealing with stress, often relying on distraction or seeking help from adults. Adolescents develop a broader repertoire. They learn to approach problems directly and work toward solutions. They discover how to reframe difficult situations, finding different ways to think about challenges. Stress management learning often occurs through a combination of trial, reflection, and guidance. School programs may offer explicit instruction in techniques for handling pressure, from breathing exercises to time management strategies. Community organizations and youth groups sometimes incorporate wellness practices into their activities, but much of the learning happens less formally. A teenager might notice that going for a run after a difficult day helps clear their mind. Another might discover that writing in a journal provides an outlet for worries that otherwise circle endlessly. A third might find that talking with a trusted friend puts problems in perspective. Over time, adolescents compare the effectiveness of different approaches and refine those that work best for them. The process of building a personal toolkit for managing stress is itself a valuable form of learning. Positive psychology research highlights the many healthy resources that teenagers draw upon. Hobbies provide engagement and flow. Physical activity releases tension and improves mood. Creative pursuits offer alternative channels for processing difficult emotions. Emotional intelligence can grow substantially during adolescence. This growth depends on opportunities to practice emotional skills and receive feedback. Families that discuss emotions openly provide one training ground. Friendships that include conflict and repair offer another. Higher emotional understanding is linked with better outcomes across many areas. Adolescents who can accurately identify what they are feeling are better positioned to respond constructively. Those who can read the emotions of others navigate social situations with greater skill. Conflict resolution becomes more sophisticated when emotional intelligence develops. Instead of escalating arguments or withdrawing in hurt silence, adolescents with stronger emotional skills can identify the underlying concerns on both sides, communicate their own needs clearly, and work towards solutions that respect everyone involved. These abilities do not develop overnight, but the adolescent years offer rich opportunities to practice and improve. Positive risk-taking represents a healthy expression of the exploratory drive that characterizes this period. It involves constructive challenges that carry some uncertainty but offer meaningful rewards. Trying out for a team, performing on stage, joining a leadership role. Studies suggest that adolescents who engage in positive risks often build confidence along with skills. The experience of taking a chance and seeing outcomes, either successful or requiring recovery, strengthens self-efficacy. Healthy challenge seeking is closely related to positive risk taking. It involves actively looking for experiences that stretch current abilities and push toward new levels of competence. This might mean entering a competition where winning is uncertain, tackling an advanced course that requires extra effort, or traveling with a structured group to unfamiliar places. The key is that the challenge occurs within a context that provides enough safety and support for growth to happen. When challenges are well matched to the adolescent's current abilities, pushing just beyond what is comfortable but not so far beyond as to overwhelm, the conditions for learning are optimal. Adventure and exploration take many forms during the teenage years. Some adolescents seek adventure in physical environments, hiking to new places, learning outdoor skills, or participating in sports that involve speed, height, or other elements of excitement. Others find adventure in the realm of ideas, exploring philosophies, sciences, or creative domains that open new ways of understanding the world. Still others explore unfamiliar social territories, connecting with people from different backgrounds, cultures, or perspectives. This exploratory drive serves important developmental functions. It helps adolescents gain the experiences that will inform later choices about careers, relationships, and lifestyles. It expands their understanding of what is possible, and it provides the raw material from which a more complete identity can be constructed. Passion and enthusiasm are common strengths during adolescence, especially when activities align with personal interests or deeply held values. A teenager who discovers something they care about, whether it is music, science, social justice, sports, or any of countless other possibilities, often brings remarkable intensity to their engagement. Long hours of practice, study, or organizing around topics that matter can feel more like flow than work. This intensity can fuel rapid skill development. A passionate young musician may practice for hours without noticing the time passing. A dedicated young activist may read extensively, attend events, and build networks with adult-level seriousness. A committed young athlete may train with discipline and focus that surpasses many adults. The capacity for deep engagement is itself a strength, one that often persists into adulthood when channeled toward meaningful pursuits. Energy and vitality often characterize the teenage years, even when sleep patterns are irregular or schedules are demanding. Many adolescents juggle school, hobbies, friendships, family responsibilities, and perhaps part-time work with notable persistence. They move through full days, often starting early and ending late, bouncing between activities with resilience that can exhaust the adults watching them. This energy is not just physical, it includes emotional vitality, the capacity to care intensely about many things at once, and intellectual vitality, the ability to engage with complex ideas and new information. When channeled well, this abundant energy becomes a resource for learning, creating, connecting, and contributing. Humor development in adolescence includes growing appreciation for more sophisticated forms of comedy. Irony, satire, and complex wordplay become accessible and enjoyable in ways they were not earlier in childhood. Adolescents often develop keen senses for absurdity and incongruity, finding amusement in the gap between how things are supposed to be and how they actually are. Shared humor frequently strengthens bonds between friends. Inside jokes, running gags, and collaborative comic riffs create a sense of belonging and shared history. Laughter also offers a gentle way to cope with awkward or stressful situations. A well-timed joke can diffuse tension, acknowledge difficulty without dwelling on it, and help everyone involved feel a little lighter. Friendship loyalty tends to deepen during these years. Many adolescents place high value on trust, reliability, and the willingness to stand by each other through difficulties. A loyal friend is someone who keeps confidences, shows up when needed, and defends against criticism or mistreatment from others. This kind of loyalty becomes increasingly important as adolescents navigate the complex social waters of secondary school and beyond. Research connects strong, loyal friendships with better emotional adjustment and lower levels of loneliness. Having even one close friend who can be counted on makes a significant difference in how adolescents experience challenging situations. These friendships also provide practice in maintaining relationships over time, working through conflicts, and balancing individual needs with commitment to another person. Romantic idealism often appears as adolescents imagine what love might look like. Many envision deep, supportive, and enduring partnerships marked by mutual understanding and caring. These visions may be influenced by stories, media, observations of adults, and their own hopes and needs. While early romantic relationships may not always match these ideals, the aspiration toward meaningful connection is itself significant. It reflects the capacity to imagine intimate partnership and to value the qualities that support it. Early romantic experiences serve as learning spaces for communication, boundaries, and mutual care. The joys and disappointments of first relationships, handled with support from trusted adults, can build understanding that informs healthier relationships later. Despite common stereotypes of constant conflict between teenagers and their families, many adolescents report feeling emotionally connected to parents and other family members. Surveys consistently show that teenagers often still turn to parents for advice on major decisions and during crises. The relationship changes during adolescence, becoming more mutual and less hierarchical, but the underlying attachment frequently remains strong. This family connection provides a secure base from which adolescents can explore the wider world. Technology skills represent a prominent strength for many in this generation. Teenagers often navigate devices, applications, and platforms with ease that can impress and sometimes overwhelm adults. They learn new systems quickly, adapt to changing interfaces, and develop fluency in digital communication. When paired with critical awareness about privacy, reliability of information, and healthy boundaries around screen time, these skills become powerful tools for learning, creativity, and connection. Information processing abilities allow adolescents to sift through large volumes of data, especially on topics they care about. They often combine rapid online searches with peer discussion to construct their understanding of events, issues, or topics of interest. While this process is not always careful or critical, it represents a form of active learning that can, with guidance, develop into sophisticated research and evaluation skills. Research that carefully examines adolescent behavior counters the idea that teenagers are uniformly selfish or uncaring. Studies show broad variability among young people and reveal many prosocial tendencies that stereotypes overlook. The teenager who organizes a charity drive, who comforts a struggling friend, who shows patience with a younger sibling, who volunteers at a local shelter, these examples are not rare exceptions. They represent widespread patterns documented by researchers across different cultures and contexts. Stereotypes that focus only on risk and rebellion overlook substantial evidence of responsibility, empathy, and community contribution in this age group. Media portrayals often emphasize the dramatic, the troublesome, the sensational. But the daily lives of most adolescents involve far more mundane goodness than is typically captured in headlines or storylines. Historically, views of adolescence have shifted substantially. In many earlier societies, the concept of adolescence as a distinct stage barely existed. Young people transition from childhood to adult roles relatively quickly, often through ceremonies or milestones like marriage or apprenticeship. The modern understanding of adolescence as a prolonged period of development emerged gradually, shaped by changes in education and scientific understanding. Early psychological theories sometimes portrayed adolescence primarily as a time of storm and stress. While this view captured something real about the challenges, it also created expectations that may have become self-fulfilling. Modern science offers a more balanced picture. It highlights adolescence as a time of opportunity, plasticity, and capacity for positive growth. The brain changes that characterize these years create vulnerabilities, yes, but they also create openings for learning, creativity, and the development of new skills. The emotional intensity of adolescence can lead to difficulties, but it can also fuel passion, commitment, and meaningful engagement with the world. The drive toward independence can generate conflict, but it also builds the competencies needed for adult functioning. Cross-cultural views of teenagers reveal both universal patterns and important local differences. Across very different societies, adolescence tends to involve increased exploration, heightened interest in peers, and gradual movement toward adult roles. These commonalities suggest deep roots in human development. At the same time, expectations for teenagers vary substantially. Some cultures provide elaborate rituals marking the passage to adulthood, while others offer no clear demarcation. In many societies, adolescents are recognized as key contributors to cultural continuity and social change. Teens contribute to families in many practical ways. Helping with younger siblings is common, as adolescents take on caregiving responsibilities that support parents managing complex schedules. Assisting with technology has become another frequent contribution, as many teenagers help family members navigate devices, applications, and online services. Participating in household tasks, from cooking to cleaning to errands, adds to the functioning of home life. The emotional support that adolescents offer to parents, grandparents, and other family members can also be significant. During times of family stress, teenagers often provide comfort, perspective, and practical help. Their growing emotional intelligence allows them to notice when something is wrong and to offer support that makes a difference. Contributions to communities extend beyond the family circle. Volunteering remains common among adolescents, with many participating through schools, faith communities, or local organizations. Youth-led creative projects have beautified neighborhoods, documented local histories, and provided services to those in need. Activism by young people has drawn attention to issues that might otherwise go unaddressed, sometimes succeeding in changing policies or practices. Research on youth, volunteering, and activism documents teen-led efforts that have improved local environments, schools, and social services. These are not token contributions designed primarily to build college applications. Many reflect genuine commitment to causes that adolescents care about deeply. The skills developed through such engagement, from organizing to communicating to persisting through setbacks, serve these young people well as they move into adult life. Emerging adult capabilities become visible as teenagers take on roles that require responsibility and skill. Mentoring younger children, whether formally through programs or informally with siblings and neighbors, develops patience, communication, and leadership. Leading clubs or organizations builds experience in planning, coordinating, and motivating others. Working part-time jobs provides exposure to workplace expectations and the satisfaction of earning. These roles offer practice in the kinds of responsibilities that will expand in adulthood. They provide opportunities to succeed, to make mistakes, and learn from them, and to develop confidence in one's ability to handle real-world demands. Adolescents often show sophisticated moral reasoning, especially when discussing real-life dilemmas that matter to them. They can articulate nuanced views about fairness, considering multiple perspectives and weighing competing values. They think about rights and responsibilities, about the balance between individual freedom and concern for others' well-being. These conversations reveal minds that are actively engaged with ethical questions, not simply absorbing adult teachings, but actively constructing their own moral frameworks. The growth of emotional intelligence supports thoughtful responses to the inevitable conflicts of social life. Instead of reacting purely from impulse, adolescents with developing emotional skills can use empathy and compromise to navigate disagreements. Teens who develop these skills often report more satisfying friendships, less persistent interpersonal tension, and greater confidence in their ability to handle social challenges. Positive exploration and risk-taking are now understood as essential ingredients in learning to navigate the wider world. Scholars emphasize that framing adolescence only as a problem period misses its important role as a training ground for courage, initiative, and innovation. The willingness to try new things, to step outside comfort zones, to take chances that might not work out. These tendencies, when channeled constructively, build exactly the qualities that adults need to thrive in a changing world. Across many studies, adolescents express a strong desire to be taken seriously and to have their perspectives heard. They want their opinions to matter in discussions about their own lives and about issues that affect their communities. Opportunities to voice opinions in school, community, or family settings can strengthen their sense of agency and responsibility. When teenagers feel that their voices count, they are more likely to engage constructively and to develop the civic habits that support healthy, democratic societies. Preparation for adulthood during these years extends far beyond academic learning. It includes emotional skills, the ability to understand and manage one's own feelings, and to connect meaningfully with others. It includes social responsibility, recognizing oneself as part of larger communities, and caring about their well-being. It includes ethical reflection, thinking carefully about right and wrong, and striving to act in accordance with one's values. These capacities develop alongside cognitive abilities and academic knowledge, forming a foundation for adult functioning that is far richer than test scores or transcripts can capture. The combined strengths of empathy, creativity, learning capacity, and idealism make adolescence a powerful stage for shaping both personal futures and the wider world. Young people who can feel deeply with others, generate new ideas, acquire complex skills, and imagine better possibilities carry within them the seeds of positive change. When these capacities are recognized, nurtured, and given constructive channels for expression, adolescents become assets to their families, communities, and societies. And so the years from 12 to 18 draw toward their close, though of course the development they have set in motion continues long after. The brain refinements, the identity explorations, the relationship skills, the emotional capacities, all of these continue to evolve across the 20s and beyond. But the foundation laid during adolescence shapes the trajectory of what follows. The teenagers who have discovered their interests, developed their voices, built meaningful relationships, and learned to navigate challenges with resilience carry these accomplishments forward. They become the young adults ready to pursue education, careers, partnerships, and community roles with a sense of who they are and what they value. Rest now as this chapter concludes. The story of human development does not end here, of course. Each stage flows into the next, and the adolescents who have been our companions through these hours will continue growing, changing, becoming. But for now, let their strengths and struggles settle into memory. Let the complexity of these years, their challenges, and their remarkable capacities become part of what you carry with you. The journey from infancy through childhood and adolescence traces an arc of extraordinary transformation. From the helpless newborn who depends entirely on others to the young adult preparing to step into the wider world. It is a journey every human being takes, in one form or another, across cultures and across centuries. And in understanding it better, we understand ourselves.